It all begins in the Hundred-Year Continental War, where a legendary man acted in the shadows during the final stages of the battle. This man was Riot Berger, known for mastering magical tools and massacring tens of thousands of enemies. In the midst of this brutal combat, he faced firsthand the fury of terrifying beasts that threatened the world. He faced terrifying monsters with disaster-class powers that devastated everything in their path. The hero used his special chains, activating a powerful glowing magic to contain the threats. He also needed to hunt down and eliminate the evil humans who controlled these terrible creatures. Under orders from his country, he took the life of absolutely anyone who dared to point a blade at him. But as soon as the war finally ended, the legendary warrior disappeared without leaving any trace of his whereabouts. Years later, in a quiet place, a young man catches the attention of a bespectacled gentleman who seems quite relaxed. The young man explains that he wants to practice fencing and asks if the older man knows of any good methods for him to start. The older man says that this is barbaric behavior and asks the boy named Ray to go sweep the dry leaves in the yard. Ray is confused and asks why his grandfather says that when he himself used to wield a sword in the past. The old man simply replies that it's all in the past and that nowadays he could barely lift a heavy blade. The boy laughs heartily and agrees, saying that his grandfather really does have less muscle than he does now. Ray stretches and reveals that he wanted the workout to use as a reference for the important academy test. He gives a determined smile and says he's found something he wants to do, but it's still a secret. The young man runs happily up the stairs, while the old man remains standing thoughtfully at the shop counter. The grandfather realizes with a certain melancholy that his grandson has grown up and is old enough to forge his own path. He reflects that he needs to stay alive longer while remembering the period when his grandson was born. Back then, he still spent all his days fighting amidst violent and bloody battles. The warrior faced several armored knights and eliminated his enemies with deadly precision in the arena. He continued to take lives relentlessly, even if it meant getting seriously injured in the heat of battle. Fury consumed him as he continued his relentless slaughter against all his opponents on the field. That routine of fighting tirelessly for the country ended up transforming the warrior into a cold weapon of combat. All that violence ended up taking a terrible toll, destroying even the photo of his beloved family. A deafening roar echoes through the air as the flames rapidly consume everything around them. The raging fire consumes the village houses, transforming the place into a scene of utter destruction. The warrior arrives at the destroyed site and finds a couple lying lifeless on the ground covered in fresh blood. He screams in complete despair and fury, demanding to know who the monster was that took both their lives. In the midst of that deadly silence, a faint baby's cry begins to echo, drawing the warrior's attention. Protected by the bodies of his deceased parents, little Ray was crying profusely under the hot rubble. The man's expression changes completely when he realizes that the little baby managed to survive that tragedy. He kneels on the devastated ground and cradles the child in his arms with great care and emotion. The little one extends his delicate hands, touching the blood-stained face of the frightened, powerful warrior. The baby flashes a pure and innocent smile amidst the chaos, bringing peace to the man's heart. Tears begin to stream down the face of the legendary warrior, who is deeply touched by that gesture. He vows to protect with his own life that orphan child who has become the new light in his dark world. Back in the present, the old man walks to a locked door, determined to do what is necessary to help his grandson. He uses an old key to open the enormous padlock and the chains that kept the passage securely locked. The old man opens the secret passage, revealing a dark staircase that leads to a mysterious basement in the mansion. Deep in the lamplit basement, a mysterious figure sits completely covered by a cloth. The old man approaches silently and pulls back the cloth, revealing what had been hidden there for so long. It is a human-like doll, identical to the warrior in his youthful days in the past. He knows very well that his aging and tired body won't be able to endure much more time. But as long as he has that special receptacle in his hands, he has a chance to continue his great mission. Suddenly, a voice from upstairs interrupts him, calling for service at the main entrance of his store. The man quickly returns to the counter and greets the unknown customer, asking what he wishes to buy. The masked stranger mysteriously reveals that he is specifically searching for powerful mythical items. The elderly man is completely shocked and on edge upon hearing such an unusual demand from his new client. The intruder moves at high speed, revealing that he had a lot of trouble finding the legendary Riot Berger. He brandishes a dagger, saying he seeks the ultimate magical tools created by the legendary killer doll. The intruder advances rapidly, arrogantly declaring that he will take absolutely everything in that place. He delivers a deadly blow with the intention of eliminating the old man and stealing all the special items at once. A large burst of blue energy flashes across the center of the hall, blocking the masked enemy's sudden attack. The villain smirks, realizing that the old merchant managed to react surprisingly well to the attack. Riot uses his secret ability to create magical tools to manifest a shining shield out of thin air. The shield, called Sacred Aegis, grants absolute divine defense, nullifying any damage below the threshold. The experienced elder faces the enemy seriously, wanting to know where he obtained the classified information. The criminal responds mockingly, warning that it's pointless for the old man to keep glaring at him with such anger. He prepares to attack again, confessing that in the end he's just a foreman hired by someone else. Knowing this, the old man decides to go all in and activates his incredible power of weapon materialization once again. A powerful explosion of blue magical energy engulfs the entire tool shop, destroying the scenery. The force of the impact is so devastating that it throws the intruder far away, causing him to lose his balance. A blinding, magical light begins to focus on the elder's hands as he prepares to summon a legendary item. He summons the powerful holy sword Excalibur, which increases his physical strength and magical power to their maximum limits. Holding the hilt of the mythical sword firmly, the elder warns in an intimidating tone that his opponent will reveal everything. He points to the gleaming blade, demanding to know immediately the exact location of the master behind it. The invader admits that the pressure from the legendary warrior is impressive, but smiles as if he has an ace up his sleeve. He rushes forward, shouting that the old man cannot hide the terrible weakness of his aged and worn-out body. The two exchange violent blows, and the old man begins to feel extreme fatigue weighing on his weak muscles. At that critical moment, young Ray suddenly enters the store calling for his grandfather and witnesses the terrifying fight. The elderly man is completely terrified to see that his beloved grandson has returned at the worst possible time. The villain grins cruelly as the grandfather screams desperately for the young man to stay away from that danger. The intruder appears behind the boy, wielding the mystical item Echo of Memories, and causes a bell to ring ominously in the room. Riot runs away desperately, cursing as he realizes the terrible effect that cursed bell has on people. The masked man holds Ray by the shoulders, complimenting the young man's excellent physique, who now has a mesmerized look in his eyes. The boy draws a golden sword at the villain's command, preparing to fight coldly against his own grandfather. With a mocking tone, Ray warns that the battle might be a little too difficult for the old man's frail body. The boy rushes forward at high speed, launching a surprise attack that leaves his grandfather speechless in the face of the betrayal. Riot is forced to block his own grandson's blade, feeling immense pain in his heart because of the situation. The old man knows that the magic bell has the dark power to alter memories and control people's minds. He realizes his grandson has been brainwashed and that he needs to defeat the summoner or use another extreme method. The other painful option would be to deliver a strong physical blow to Ray's head to wake him from his magical trance. Unable to attack the real culprit who is far away, the old man laments having no other choice but to hit his own grandson. With perfect precision, he delivers a decisive blow to disarm and immobilize the boy without seriously injuring him. He silently begs the boy for forgiveness as he prepares to deliver the blow needed to break the spell. The elder lands a precise blow, releasing a wave of blue energy to nullify the bell's effect on Ray's mind. A cloud of dust and smoke rises into the air after the impact of the attack, splitting the combatants in the middle of the room. The young man falls unconscious near a wall while the villain mocks him, saying that the old man has no mercy for the family. Riot responds with a murderous look, stating that he knows perfectly well how to control his strength to protect his grandson. Seeing that his manipulation plan had failed, the masked man angrily retreated, realizing that things had become difficult. Suddenly, an immense beam of golden light descends from the sky, shattering the ceiling and surprising the two fighters in the shop. Amidst the intense light, an imposing figure emerges, seemingly calmly analyzing the situation. A warrior in golden armor appears, declaring that a mere lackey would never be a match for the legendary warrior. The masked henchman trembles with terror upon realizing the sudden arrival of that extremely powerful person. Riot sweated nervously as he felt the overwhelming pressure emanating from the new presence that had just invaded the place. The elder goes on high alert, recognizing that this bizarre energy is on a completely different level. The mysterious warrior raises her enormous golden sword, making the old man realize that the situation has become dire. As Riot tries to prepare for the worst, his chest begins to ache intensely as if his heart is failing. He doubles over in pain, cursing having a heart attack at the most dangerous moment of his life. The mysterious warrior advances with extreme speed and delivers a powerful golden blow against the defenseless old man. Her cold, piercing gaze is focused entirely on ending that fight once and for all, without hesitation. Riot attempts to resist, using all the remaining strength of his legendary sword Excalibur to contain the terrifying attack. He cracks the ground under the immense pressure, but refuses to surrender even with his body tired and aged by time. The warrior shouts with determination, affirming that his mind and combat skills will never weaken. Drops of blood begin to drip onto the cold floor, revealing the terrible physical exhaustion he is suffering there. The old man's eyes widened as he realized something terrible was happening right before his eyes in the heat of that brutal fight. He focuses his tired gaze on the terrible surprise that has just treacherously appeared right behind him. Young Ray suddenly appears and stabs his own grandfather in the back, leaving the old man in shock. Riot spits blood and whispers the name of his beloved grandson, while the boy remains with that cold, lifeless look. Immediately afterwards, the purple smoke dissipates and Ray's eyes return to normal, indicating that he has broken free from the spell. The young man regains consciousness and sees his beloved grandfather gravely wounded right before him, without understanding what happened. He is completely shocked and confused to realize that he was the one who injured his own grandfather with the blade in his hand. Ray stares at his trembling hands and the blood dripping down his sword, falling into complete despair. Even though badly wounded, the old man uses his last strength to unleash a gust of wind and drive the enemies away. A huge cloud of dust and smoke rises into the air after the powerful warrior's desperate attack in the arena. The young man coughs amidst the dust, trying to recover from the strong impact as the fog begins to slowly lift. He starts screaming desperately for his grandfather, wanting to make sure the old man is still alive amidst all the chaos. Suddenly, a frightening silhouette appears behind the boy, coldly warning him that he is merely getting in the way. Lying on the ground, powerless, the old warrior realizes with horror that his exhausted body can no longer move. He bleeds heavily and mentally begs the powerful enemy not to take another step toward his grandson. Ray takes a protective stance and warns the intruder that he will show no mercy if he dares to touch his grandfather. The warrior simply stares at him with a cold, bored look, showing no concern or fear whatsoever. The old man desperately begs the boy to run away, knowing full well that the young man has no chance against her. The young man swallows hard but maintains a firm and determined gaze, resolved to protect the one who has always cared for him in life. The opponent with bright golden eyes disdainfully analyzes the boy's posture, hastily preparing her final attack. She takes a firm, heavy step forward, indicating that she will put an end to this nonsense without showing any compassion. A sadistic and cruel smile appears on the enemy's face, who is thoroughly amused by the despair of those family members. The boy gathers all his courage and charges forward, delivering a desperate blow with his sword against his powerful rival. The grandfather screams in utter despair as he watches his beloved grandson throw himself into a suicidal attack against death. A violent cut occurs in the blink of an eye, and a large amount of blood gushes cruelly into the cold air. The horrific scene is reflected in the teary eyes of the elderly man, who helplessly watches the terrible tragedy unfold before him. He fondly remembers his grandson's cheerful smile, while his own heart shatters into 1,000 pieces. The final blow is delivered with overwhelming violence, staining the entire place with the vivid red of tragedy. The warrior cleans her sword, while the masked henchman complains about her leaving so many clues at the scene. The old warrior lies dying on the ground, dragging himself slowly with what little consciousness and life remains to him. He extends his trembling hand toward where his grandson fell as he listens to the heavy footsteps approaching him. The rival approaches scornfully, reminding him that in the past he was the strongest of all, but today he is a failure. She raises her enormous golden blade with absolute coldness to deliver the coup de grace to the legendary fallen hero. A deafening cutting sound echoes in the darkness as the terrible blade reaps the life of the ancient warrior on the ground. In the middle of the dark void, a small, magical blue flame begins to float in a mystical and mysterious way. The warrior's soul bitterly laments in the darkness for not having been able to save his grandson from that terrible death. He cries as he remembers that the boy was the only light that saved him from utter despair after losing his former family. Memories of all the happy moments he spent raising that sweet child flash before his sad mind. The image of Ray's warm smile shines brightly amidst that cold, lonely darkness of the afterlife. An overwhelming fury consumes his soul, and he solemnly swears revenge on all those responsible. Suddenly, a system message indicates that the final condition for awakening the secret ability has been met. The killer doll's limit to manipulating magical power is released, and its soul descends into the artificial body in the basement. The system confirms that, due to the awakening, the user's soul will be successfully transferred to the magical receptacle. A violent red flame engulfs the artificial body, which begins to awaken with a new and overwhelming power. He rises from the chair, revealing his new youthful form surrounded by an overwhelming red energy. The eyes of the new artificial body open, gleaming intensely with an unwavering desire for revenge. He now inhabits Riot Berger's reincarnation doll, a perfect mythical item created by himself in the past. Mythical tools are the most powerful and forbidden creations known for defying the laws of nature. These extraordinary magical items were all crafted by the legendary and brilliant weapons craftsman Riot Berger. They are forbidden tools capable of distorting and controlling the laws of time, space, and even human souls themselves. An unimaginable power that would make the entire world tremble, and which rulers of all kingdoms desperately sought. Among these mythical rarities was a magic pipe capable of allowing the user to see visions of the future. There was also a special vehicle that functioned like magic wings, allowing it to jump freely through space. Another striking mythical creation was a brilliant magic key made to open hearts and extract hidden secrets. There was even a tuning harp specifically designed to manipulate anyone's emotions. However, the vast majority of these legendary mystical relics have been completely lost amidst the mystery. All these special items vanished without a trace as soon as the craftsman Riot disappeared off the map during the war. Back at the destroyed scene, the henchman complains about the orders he received not to leave any witnesses alive. He grumbles that his partner's dramatic entrance caused a lot of confusion and will be a huge job to clean up. Holding a precious pendant, the henchman scoffs, saying that at least he deserves to keep that valuable reward. The protagonist, now reborn in his reincarnation doll form, vows to put an end to the criminal's cruel plans. He reveals that he created that receptacle only to continue caring for his grandson, but that the scum destroyed his peace. Using his power, he manifests a huge and terrifying cleaver called guillotine, its blade stained with blood. Consumed by deep hatred, he coldly repeats that the monsters made the worst mistake by attacking an innocent child. The reborn one advances at high speed to punish the enemy, warning that every cowardly act has its due consequence. The masked henchman senses the deadly danger approaching and desperately tries to react, but to no avail. The powerful blow cuts through the air with extreme precision and force, delivering a deadly attack against the startled intruder. The protagonist coldly confronts his adversary, vowing to make the wretch pay for all the pain he caused the village. Silence and cold fog envelop the desolate valley surrounded by abandoned buildings and wooden debris. The hero uses a shovel to dig a proper grave in the earth, paying his last respects in that sad place. Riot closes his aching eyes as he whispers his grandson's name, grieving deeply for the untimely loss of his beloved boy. He remembers when little Ray would run happily through the forest calling out to him with a beautiful, pure smile. Another sweet memory emerges of the boy having dinner and playfully complaining about the old man's jokes at the table. Do you also remember when the boy who had trouble sleeping would seek out his grandfather in the middle of the night, asking for affection? Until recently, the young man enthusiastically confided that he had found a great, secret life goal. The protagonist sighs deeply, keeping all that precious pain deep within his now immortal heart. He bitterly regrets never having had the chance to hear what his grandson's true life dream was. He focuses his hatred on the mysterious warrior responsible for the tragedy, known only by the codename The Client. With his eyes blazing with pure fury, he vows to track down the assassin who ordered the killing and make her pay with her own life. Besides revenge, he needs to recover the stolen mythical items, using the pendant left by the henchman as a clue. The hero examines the mysterious pendant and recognizes the symbol as belonging to the dangerous and secretive Yujin tribe. By activating his creation ability, he summons the star compass, capable of reading information from objects and finding their owners. He knows that by following the tribe's clues one by one, he will finally be able to discover the client's location. The mystical artifact points to a direct route on the map, leading the hero to decide to attack their secret base first. He arrives at the indicated location and observes the entrance to the hidden fortress, knowing he is in the right place for his hunt. That isolated tribe possesses incredible dark techniques that make its assassins feared throughout the continent. They use the terrifying art of soul reading to extract memories from corpses, serving as a spy unit in the war. The warrior walks confidently across the bridge that leads to the dreaded Valley of Bones, the hidden village of that dangerous tribe. He reflects that he acted discreetly for years, making it almost impossible for any former teammate to track him down. But knowing that the assassins are from the Yujin clan changes everything, because they hunt and kill anyone who crosses their path. They eliminate the targets and extract the memories from the bodies until they can find any clue that leads back to the hero. While walking thoughtfully, the protagonist is surprised by a sharp sword pointed directly at his neck. The masked guard warns that only members of the clan know about that hidden place and demands to know who he really is. Several hooded warriors emerge from the shadows, surrounding the hero and threatening to kill him if he doesn't answer soon. The protagonist stares at the guard with disdain, asking if he really thinks an intruder would respond politely. The masked guard immediately loses his temper and orders the others to kill him without giving him another chance. Several enemies attack at once, but Riot moves quickly, brilliantly blocking all the blows. One of the guards is completely shocked to realize the incredible speed and agility of the mysterious intruder. A powerful counterattack makes the ground tremble, scattering stones and dust all over the entrance to that dangerous fortress. The guards recoil in terror upon realizing that their sharp weapons simply shattered upon contact with the hero. Unable to use blades, the assassins decide to rely on their powers and unleash destructive spells in his direction. They unleash magical purple blasts, shouting that they will identify the intruder by what remains of their destroyed body. A large cloud of smoke forms after the devastating impact, temporarily obscuring the aftermath of the attack. Amidst the dust, the protagonist calmly walks away and wipes his shoulder, having suffered absolutely no damage. The men of the clan are in despair and shout, asking if that mysterious young man is some kind of immortal monster. Riot coldly states that they must have ruthlessly hunted down every person who dared to cross his path in the past. He asks with a grim look how many innocent lives they took just to extract the memories from the corpses. The trembling guard orders him to shut up, while the hero activates his special ability to create magical weapons. He summons the terrifying Iron Maiden, a mystical medieval torture instrument made of pure steel to crush his rivals. The hero coldly states that the only thing he truly wants to hear from those murderers is their screams. One of the guards is forcibly locked inside the mystical instrument and begins to scream in pain as he feels the iron points. Blood begins to seep through the cracks in the metal, revealing the terrible fate of those who dared to defy the hero. The hall fills with these bloodied iron structures as the protagonist moves forward without looking back. The blood of the defeated enemies splatters across the stone floor, confirming the ruthless elimination of all the guards. Later, one of the assassins who had fainted during the fight begins to regain consciousness with difficulty. He looks around and panics when he realizes that all his clanmates have been brutally massacred. Riot appears before him, warning that he spared only his life, and the trembling survivor asks what he wants from there. The protagonist pulls out a gleaming dagger, warning the prisoner that he only needs to answer what he knows to avoid the pain. With eyes red with pure hatred, he presses the blade to the man's neck, demanding to know the whereabouts of the client who ordered the hiring. After the interrogation, the clan member appears tied to a chair, completely covered in blood after being tortured. The hero realizes that the prisoner didn't actually know anything useful and laments that the clue was a dead end. He searches every corner of the enemy base, and the only thing of value he finds is an old document with a list of clients. In the darkness of the basement, the protagonist meticulously examines the old papers stored among the wooden boxes. The list shows the names of important officials and wealthy merchants, but he notices that some pages have been torn out. He sighs irritably, deducing that the culprit was overly cautious in destroying the information that would reveal his name. The hero reflects that the strength and cunning of the person who commands indicate that he must be a well-positioned S-class adventurer in the kingdom. He also remembers the provocative words the warrior said, revealing that she knew of his former reputation as a fighter. This leads the hero to seriously conclude that the mysterious woman who ordered the service was certainly someone who knew him during the Great War. But he decides not to jump to conclusions, knowing he needs to gather much more information before acting against his rival. He continues flipping through the client list until he suddenly comes across a surprising name that catches his attention. With that unexpected discovery, the protagonist immediately decides what his next hunting destination will be. The document reveals the identity and face of a well-dressed man who will be the next target of the experienced warrior. He knows that to get more clues about the client who ordered the crime, he will need to interrogate people connected to the criminal. And to obtain this secret information, the only viable path at the moment is to go after that man with the sheet of paper. The scene shifts to a beautiful city with red rooftops, where the killer doll will continue its relentless quest for revenge. The protagonist walks calmly towards the immense mansion where his new target from the secret document resides. He pauses in front of the gate of the luxurious residence, assessing the security of the mansion before silently entering the premises. His firm, silent footsteps echo through the empty corridors of the mansion as he searches for the main room. The hero enters a well-decorated office, observing the empty desk in search of any useful clue. He notices a beautiful picture frame with a photo of a happy family positioned right on top of the dark wood furniture. Suddenly, a man with glasses tries to strike him from behind with extreme force, but Riot manages to dodge without difficulty. The hero's eyes widen as he notices something surprising and familiar in his new attacker's fighting stance. The two exchange quick and precise blows in the middle of the office, provoking a strong gust of wind that scatters papers. The bespectacled man steps back after the exchange of blows and suspiciously asks who that mysterious young intruder is. The bespectacled man asks in surprise why the mysterious young intruder looks so much like his former companion. Riot remarks ironically that it's quite a cold reception for someone who hasn't seen each other in so long. He concludes by saying that they are old friends and that receiving a warm hug would be much better at that moment. The man activates his special iron arm technique and unleashes a violent attack against the protagonist. The impact of the blow generates a strong whirlwind of wind and dust that destroys part of the office decor. The force of the clash between the two combatants is so intense that it completely shatters the glass window of the mansion. The assailant steps back and stares at him suspiciously, demanding that he immediately reveal his true identity. Riot simply adjusts his posture calmly and asks why he is attacking an old friend with such fury. The man shouts angrily, telling him to shut up, and lunges forward again, delivering another powerful punch in his direction. The protagonist silently ponders whether his former companion is truly incapable of recognizing his physical presence. He effortlessly dodges each attack, demonstrating that his combat agility remains impeccable. The man with glasses is shocked to recognize the perfect dodging movements that belonged to his former leader. The hero takes a firm step forward, calmly stating that he had already warned everyone about his true identity. He stares at him closely, reaffirming with authority that he is the same Riot who fought alongside him in the Great War of the past. To prove his identity, he makes a precise kick, complaining about how many times he'll have to repeat the same thing. The blow throws the man forcefully against the office floor, creating a crater and destroying the mansion's flooring. Groaning in pain, he tries to rise from the rubble, feeling the full weight of that absurd impact on his muscles. Riot observes his fallen teammate and admits with a playful tone that he ended up overdoing it a bit with the force of the counterattack. The wounded man finally accepts reality and admits, shocked, that the intruder is indeed the legendary war hero. The old war buddy, Lit Brown, rubs his forehead, relieved but still confused by the unusual situation. The protagonist calmly takes a sip of tea, pretending to be hurt because his friend took so long to recognize him. He jokes about other people aging, but Lit retorts that nobody usually gets younger overnight. The friend also complains about the previous punch, pointing out that the blow was stronger than Riot could deliver in his physical prime. The hero reveals naturally that everything is thanks to the magical tools, and that he had hoped the hero would understand the technique. Lit Brown settles into his armchair and remarks that those days of combat in the Royal Army are a distant memory. He sighs, remembering that after the war ended, everything changed in the world and that he decided to disappear from the big battles. The friend explains that people have finally stopped fighting and are now focused on rebuilding their lives in times of peace. Open-air markets are full again, and children can now run freely through peaceful markets without the threat of war. He says that he also started a family, and that today he is a successful businessman who leads local retail networks. Riot praises his former soldier's great career change, and his friend agrees, proud of his achievement. Lit then asks what the former leader is plotting by suddenly reappearing with that same youthful appearance. The protagonist lowers his gaze sadly as he prepares to recount the terrible reason for his return to combat. He reveals in a low voice that he had also become a grandfather before suffering the worst tragedy of his long life. He warns that the story is long and asks if his old companion is willing to listen very carefully to everything. Silence fills the reading room as the tragic story of his grandson Ray's death is revealed to his friend. After hearing the terrible truth, the merchant held his teacup tightly, lamenting what had happened. He takes a sip of tea and confesses with sincere regret that his former commander went through a real hell on earth. He deduces that Riot found his name on the Yujin tribe's secret list and therefore decided to go look for him at his mansion. The hero smiles slightly, commenting that he never imagined his former partner would be involved with that criminal gang. Lit Brown explains that the business world is complicated and asks what his friend plans to do next. The protagonist clenches his fist tightly, declaring that his final decision has been made and there is no turning back. With eyes gleaming with pure hatred, he coldly states that his only goal now is to get his revenge. Lit Brown pauses thoughtfully and wonders if a violent massacre would really be what little Ray would want. The hero gives an enigmatic smile, replying that no one knows what the dead would like, but he cannot hesitate. He claims that evil deeds demand punishment, and that this bloody revenge is his way of taking responsibility. He concludes by telling his friend that the entire violent hunt is not motivated solely by the tragic death of his grandson. The hero recalls that the legendary mystical tools have been stolen, and that if they fall into the wrong hands, it will cause chaos. He explains that the entire world could easily be destroyed if the villains used the power of those war relics. The friend agrees on the seriousness of the situation and asks if the main plan is to hunt down and eliminate this secret mastermind. The hero confirms his objective and asks his friend for help, who immediately agrees, asking what supplies he needs. Riot hands over a folded sheet containing a detailed list of rare materials he urgently needs. He reveals that he will forge a powerful new magical tool specifically to defeat that cursed mistress. The merchant examines the paper carefully and agrees to use his extensive trading network to obtain the parts. Lit Brown then points out that there's one more extremely important detail his friend needs to keep in mind. He mentions that Riot was well connected in the underworld and asks if he knows how to infiltrate the dreaded Black Spy Guild. The meeting place is known as the Tablet of Ruin, hidden inside the Grand Kubrick Library in the capital. The capital's enormous public archive serves only as a peaceful facade to conceal the dark secrets of the underworld. The true purpose of that old building is to conceal the secret passage that leads directly to the assassin's headquarters. The protagonist walks calmly between the wooden shelves, searching for specific volumes on the dark bookcase. He begins pulling and moving the books in the correct order to activate the secret mechanism that opens the stone wall. A loud mechanical noise echoes through the silent library hall, indicating that the secret passage has been unlocked. A crack opens in the wall, revealing a dark underground staircase that leads directly to the depths of the guild. He descends the torchlit spiral staircase with complete composure, oblivious to the hidden dangers. The hero observes the immense subterranean environment that begins to reveal itself before his eyes after the silent descent. He arrives at the grand hall of the Dark Guild rounds, surrounded by imposing decorations of pure, mysterious bluish magic. Suddenly, a huge, muscular warrior leaps down, delivering a violent surprise attack aimed at his head. A destructive red shockwave surges upon impact, but the protagonist manages to easily dodge the blow. He holds the enemy's spiked weapon in one hand, commenting on that violent and unnecessary reception. The assailant introduces himself as Randall and warns with a smile that things in the underworld always work in a brutal way. The muscular warrior greets the guild receptionist cheerfully, as if that violence were an everyday occurrence. The smiling Mina greets the two, warning them that absolutely all the jobs offered at the guild are extremely dangerous. She warns that entering without a determination will cause unnecessary deaths, and that cleaning up the bodies is very expensive. When asked if he really wants to register with the guild, the hero confirms, saying that's exactly why he came. The receptionist informs him that he will take an admission test and asks him to choose the codename he will use on missions. He silently reflects that he needs a completely new name to avoid being tracked by his old codenames. The hero searches for an identity that will aid him in his quest for revenge and represent his true purpose in the fight. The protagonist's eyes gleam intensely, a firm decision made deep within his determined heart. He flashes an enigmatic smile, confirming that he has finally chosen the perfect codename for his revenge journey. He requests to be registered under the name Ray, paying a final tribute to the memory of his dear and beloved grandson. The receptionist calls him Mr. Ray and informs him that the official registration test will begin at that very moment in the hall. The protagonist calmly inquires about the details of the test, and the girl simply confirms with a cheerful smile on her face. She opens a huge, ornate iron door and asks the two of them to follow her while she explains the rules along the way. Mina explains that just like in a regular adventurer's guild, they classify all missions by difficulty level. She points out that there are 7 ranks and warns that even the lowest-ranking F missions carry a real risk of death. The hero understands that the test serves as a screening process to keep only the strongest fighters and maintain a high level for the guild. The receptionist happily agrees, saying that they can't trust amateurs because they run serious businesses there. The hero reflects that it is sad to see that businesses based on taking lives still thrive even in times of world peace. As they descend the stairs, Randall strikes up a conversation, asking if the protagonist will also be taking the dreaded entrance exam. The brutish warrior smiles, saying yes, because in the guild he's paid to do any dirty work he wants. He looks at his own trembling hand, confessing chillingly that he loves choosing missions where he can kill freely. The brute makes an insane expression of pure sadism, saying that just imagining the fight makes his whole body tremble. Mina comments with complete nonchalance that the guild is full of bloodthirsty and violent warriors like that man. The group finally reaches the bottom of the descent, and the hero carefully observes the area prepared for the test. It is a huge underground circular arena known to all as the Pit of Cursed Offerings. The friendly receptionist announces that the exam will begin immediately and asks the candidates to descend the steps into the arena. The protagonist walks to the edge of the stone pit, calmly observing the dark structure where the combat will take place. He enters the arena along with the other candidates, who appear nervous as they await the start of the combat evaluation. Positioned at the top of the pit, Mina shouts excitedly, asking if all the warriors are ready. One of the brutes roars with rage, ordering the test to begin immediately and threatening to kill the first opponent who crosses his path. The protagonist merely observes that exaggerated impatience with disdain and comments on the short temper of his opponents. The receptionist, with a huge smile, asks all the warriors to look carefully below their feet. The competitors stare at the ground, intrigued, not understanding what the real surprise is that awaits them at that moment. Suddenly, a bright crack appears, splitting the arena floor in two and startling all the fighters inside. The ground begins to open up, revealing a vast sea of boiling lava bubbling beneath everyone's feet in the arena. The unbearable heat begins to rise rapidly, causing the warriors to sweat nervously in the face of that mortal danger. She explains excitedly that over time the ground will completely retract into the walls, and the only way to survive is. At that moment, several heavy chains begin to descend from the ceiling, drawing the attention of the experienced protagonist. Mina warns that as soon as the ground completely disappears, whoever is still alive and hanging on will be considered to have passed the test. The receptionist waves cheerfully, wishing everyone good luck and urging them to do their best to survive. The men begin to complain desperately, saying that the currents are too high and that it is impossible to reach them. A bespectacled wizard arrogantly celebrates, declaring that the air is his perfect territory to shine and pass the test. He uses his special air-walking technique to float upwards with the currents with remarkable ease. Another competitor roars with rage, cursing the wizard for trying to get ahead and pass the test by cheating the other rivals. The wizard laughs mockingly as he reaches out to grab the first metal chain hanging from the ceiling. A bandana-wearing warrior grinned maliciously, raising his finger and warning that he would never allow such easy cheating. He activates his secret vector-altering ability to change the direction of the physical forces around him. Under the spell's influence, the wizard completely loses control of his body and begins to plummet towards the burning lava. The man with glasses screams in utter despair as he realizes he is falling straight into the terrifying pit of fire below. He falls headfirst into the sea of boiling lava, being completely consumed by the deadly flames in a tragic instant. The trickster laughs loudly, warning that trying to save himself alone was a very naive move by that arrogant wizard. Randall roared with insane laughter, shouting that simply surviving while hanging there would be far too boring and tedious. He begins to spin his heavy weapon, vowing to assassinate absolutely everyone until only he remains proven guilty. The competitors tremble with hatred as they realize the test was specifically designed for them all to kill each other. A violent pitched battle begins in the moat, with warriors mercilessly attacking each other amidst the smoke and chaos. The protagonist remains standing with his arms crossed, observing the brutal carnage unfolding around him. He silently ponders whether that bloody admission test really boils down to a simple, senseless massacre. In the midst of the chaos, the men continue running and dueling wildly, trying to secure their space for survival. Randall approaches the hero, complaining about his calm demeanor and telling him to stop acting superior. He challenges the protagonist, calling him to a fun fight, while the hero remains standing still, showing no fear. Riot responds with extreme coldness, telling the brute not to bother because he wouldn't last 3 seconds in combat. The giant roars in fury, but the hero warns him that he should focus on how he truly intends to survive the test. He points to the ceiling, explaining that even if he kills everyone there, it will be useless if he can't reach the chains. The giant pauses for a thoughtful moment and reluctantly admits that the young boy is indeed right about the danger. He then glances to the side with a wicked grin, plotting a cruel way to climb onto the roof. The giant grabs a smaller warrior by the hair and throws him upwards with all his might, as if he were an object. The man who was thrown from the vehicle manages to desperately hold onto the metal chain, relieved that he didn't fall into the lava. Suddenly, the chains begin to glow with a scorching reddish-orange hue, burning the skin of whoever holds them. The warrior screams in agony as he feels his hands fry on the superheated metal from the infernal heat coming from below. Unable to bear the unbearable pain, he releases the chain and begins to plummet straight towards the lava pit. Randall laughs loudly, commenting that that was a close call, and complains that the hero almost convinced him to climb the wrong way. The unfortunate man plunges into the pit of flames, while the warriors realize the chains are too hot to hold him. The giant observes the surrounding chaos with mockery, stating that now that he understands the trick of the test, everything has become easy. Another combatant in the arena is left in complete shock when he is grabbed by surprise by the fearsome brute warrior. The giant violently grips the trembling opponent's head, demonstrating his absurd and merciless physical strength. The prisoner desperately tries to break free, but realizes he is completely trapped in Randall's deadly grip. The giant begins using the bodies of the other fighters as support and rungs of a human ladder to climb into the arena. He crushes and suffocates the competitors without any mercy, while they scream in pain under his overwhelming strength. From upstairs, the receptionist observes the bizarre scene with amusement, commenting that his method is quite daring. The brute grins sadistically, mockingly thanking the men for helping him climb. The protagonist observes that deplorable scene with a look of profound contempt, thinking what scum that man is. Randall taunts the protagonist, saying the ground is about to disappear completely, and urges him to climb up immediately. The big guy grins cruelly as he notices that all the other participants in the arena have already fallen into the sea of lava. The hero silently observes the scene of destruction as the warriors' bodies are burned in the blazing lava. He repeats the word sacrifices, intrigued by the ruthless method the brute used to climb up there. The protagonist quickly moves forward, stating disdainfully that he doesn't need anyone else's life to reach the top. Randall is completely shocked when he is surprised by a swift attack coming directly from above him. The young hero leans calmly on the brute's head while firmly gripping the boiling chain. He reveals with a serious look that his artificial doll body is immune and simply doesn't feel any heat at all. The scene shifts to the main square in front of the grand headquarters of the kingdom's prestigious Order of Knights. The citizens are excitedly chatting about finally having the chance to see the legendary hero known as Sword Star. People comment with great admiration on the absurd strength of the greatest knight of the entire royal dynasty. The crowd feels completely safe knowing that the protection of the entire empire rests in the hands of that legendary hero. A woman in the square shouts, pointing towards the entrance of the grand royal palace, drawing the attention of everyone around her. The crowd erupts in complete delirium, celebrating the warrior's return with petals and many shouts of celebration. The knight slowly closes his eyes, maintaining a calm posture amidst all the noisy celebration. The hero known as Sir Haste appears imposingly, clad in his beautiful armor in the middle of the grand hall. Back in the lava pit, the protagonist continues to hold tightly to the iron chain without suffering any burns. On the balcony above, observers shout in surprise at the ease with which the young intruder passed the test. The examiners jokingly commented that the new candidate was incredibly interesting and had made the test much more lively. But the protagonist knows that this is only the beginning of his journey to expose the guild leaders. The dark-haired woman remarks with a cruel smile that not enough blood has yet been spilled in the arena. Randall roars with anger and humiliation, demanding that the boy immediately remove his foot from his face. Riot simply gives a mocking smile and thanks him for serving as an excellent stepping stone for his ascent. The hero leaps, propelling his body upwards, and kicks the big guy hard, sending him plummeting down. The receptionist congratulates the survivors on their good work as the hero walks back to the main hall. She announces that the only ones who passed the entrance exam were the protagonist and the gigantic, enraged warrior. The girl hands over the papers and says she will officially register him so he can begin working as a member of rank F. She explains with a cheerful smile that both the new assassins and the missions they receive are divided by ranks. She shows the ranking chart, revealing that he will need to complete several contracts to gradually level up. The hero finds the system simple, but she warns that even the lowest tasks involve a serious risk to life. The receptionist complains about how many people give up halfway through, leaving an immense amount of work for the guild to clean up. She explains that the members of the highest ranks are ruthless warriors who have survived extreme dangers. These war veterans are known for possessing vast experience and cold-bloodedness in all their assassinations. She concludes by saying that reaching rank S grants access to the guild's most protected secrets and files. This valuable access grants permission to enter the legendary library of confidential underworld files. She encourages the protagonist to climb to the top to obtain highly lucrative and important missions. Riot realizes that this library is exactly the source he needs to access to discover the identity of his rival. The protagonist gets straight to the point and asks what's the fastest way to achieve the coveted S rank. Suddenly, the young man with braids appears from behind, replying mockingly that the only quick way is to kill a lot of people. The girl is in shock and stammers as she recognizes the presence of that mysterious boy in the place. She whispers in fright, revealing that the young prodigy has already been officially approved for promotion to rank S. The guy introduces himself as Gaia and proudly boasts about his position as the absolute leader of all rank members of the guild. The protagonist stares at him seriously, realizing he is facing one of the organization's most lethal warriors. She says the little assassin joined the guild when he was only 5 years old and has already eliminated tens of thousands of targets. Gaia walks beside him in a friendly tone, asking if the hero also has the great goal of reaching rank S. The boy suddenly changes to a frightening expression and disdainfully warns that this will never happen to him. He points out that throughout the practical exam, the protagonist simply stood there watching the massacre without fighting. The prodigy stares at him with a somber look, reinforcing that the hero was unable to take the life of any competitor there. He leans very close to the protagonist, saying mockingly that he can perfectly smell him. The young prodigy ends the conversation by whispering that the hero exudes an unbearable smell of false virtue. The hero mentally repeats the boy's words, trying to understand what he meant by that false virtue. The young assassin questions the logic of leaving alive those who might seek revenge in the future. He reluctantly admits that the protagonist actually possesses excellent physical combat and dodging skills. With a psychopathic look, the boy asserts that the only true way to win is by completely annihilating his rivals. The hero simply listens to the child's insane rant in silence, maintaining a completely indifferent gaze. The assassin says the underground guild was created only for people who love to see the blood of their targets gush. He warns in a threatening tone that acting with such mercy in the arena will ultimately cost the hero his life. Instead of being intimidated by the provocation, the protagonist lets out a sarcastic laugh right in the boy's face. The young prodigy gets annoyed, asking what's so funny, while the receptionist just observes. The protagonist places his hand on the boy's shoulder in a friendly manner, feigning emotion at the gesture. He mocks him, saying that his heart warms when he sees the future S-rank soldier so concerned about his well-being. The young prodigy's eyes widened, and his teeth clenched in pure fury at being treated in such an insolent manner. The hero walks away, saying he appreciates the advice but doesn't have time to waste on childish games. The protagonist finishes by coldly stating that killing the boy would guarantee his immediate promotion to S-rank. He wouldn't hesitate to rip that arrogant boy's head off right there and then, in that very millisecond. The young man pushes the hero's hand away, shouting in disgust that he should never dare touch him like that again. Consumed by hatred, he shouts, asking if the hero really thinks he can kill him after passing a simple test. The prodigy roars furiously, saying that a mere F-rank rookie is already getting too proud and arrogant for his liking. He activates his power by transforming into a wild beast and warns that his opponent wouldn't last 10 seconds in combat. The protagonist calmly raises his left hand, manifesting a powerful blue magical energy. The hulking Randall suddenly appears between the two, telling them not to make battle plans without including him. He angrily grabs the hero by the collar and roars, declaring that he will be the first to crush him and take his life. The protagonist simply stares at him with a bored look and coldly tells the big guy not to waste his time. He concludes by saying that after he dies, the big guy won't even have time to regret it. The brute is blinded by rage at that audacious reply and roars, demanding to know what the boy just said. The giant places his enormous hand on the hero's head, threatening to crush his skull right there in front of everyone. He boasts of his reputation as a ruthless killer, vowing to destroy that young, beautiful face in a single second. The hero lets out only a weary sigh, showing that he has absolutely no patience to put up with that kind of scum. Suddenly, the brute's eyes widened as he noticed bright, sharp threads closing in around his body. The protagonist precisely activates his legendary magic creation skill to summon a new and deadly trap. It materializes special iron stakes, joined by a super-sharp vibrating wire capable of cutting through anything. The big guy screams in terror as he sees the sharp red lines begin to slice through his skin, giving him no chance to defend himself. The brute's blood spurts violently down the walls of the underground arena, leaving the examiners astonished. The pieces of the giant's body fall inert to the arena floor, confirming the tragic and instantaneous end of the criminal. Gaia advances with absurd speed, stating disdainfully that the hero defeated only some random failure. The beastly boy attempts to deliver a powerful blow with his sharp claws, warning his opponent not to boast too much. The protagonist easily dodges and ironically praises the young man's impeccable strength and speed. But with a calm look, he begins to manifest yet another of his incredible, shining magical items in his hands. He summons the Scarlet Whip and points out that the boy's biggest mistake is always attacking in a straight line without thinking. The young prodigy is struck squarely by the energy whip, completely losing control of his rapid advance. He manages to land on the ground, growling with hatred and shouts, asserting that a weak blow like that means nothing. The hero appears right behind him with a gleaming shield, commenting that he had expected that proud reaction. An immense barrier of blue energy manifests, blocking the beast's violent attack with extreme precision. The impact of the magical barrier generates a huge bluish shockwave, pushing the young assassin far away. The prodigy scrapes his claws on the ground, trying to steady himself while cursing the newcomer's unexpected power. The protagonist looks at him with complete serenity, observing that the little boy is indeed quite persistent. With a terrifying grin, the beast roars, its true strength completely beyond the norm in that area. From up above, the beautiful examiner observes the combat, shocked to recognize the legendary item creation skill. She focuses her gaze on the protagonist, realizing with horror that that identical fighting style belongs to someone else. The boy lunges from the arena wall with all his might in a final attack, shouting that he will prove his true power. The young man leaps at high speed, unleashing several blows in the air as he attempts to break through the hero's magic barrier. Riot calmly observes the little assassin's impressive agility and realizes that he has become even faster. The boy moves like a purple blur, trying to surprise the protagonist from behind with his overwhelming speed. With a sadistic grin, he roars, announcing that he has finally found the perfect opening in his opponent's defense. But the hero reacts in a fraction of a second, activating his blue shield to block the boy's violent physical attack. The protagonist stares at him closely and calmly remarks that he still has much to learn in life. He authoritatively warns that he will personally prove that there will always be someone much stronger than him in the world. The examiner observes the hero's precise movements and begins to seriously suspect his true identity. Instead of backing down, the boy's smile widens even more insanely, praising his opponent's overwhelming strength in the arena. He does a somersault in the air, shouting that he now has an uncontrollable urge to slice the protagonist's body into pieces. The hero coldly warns that acting with such an arrogant and savage temperament will cause him to die very young. Gaia roars, ordering her opponent to shut up, and delivers an energy-charged kick against the glowing barrier. He lunges forward with sharp claws, declaring with great hatred that he detests meddlesome people who try to lecture him. The violent impact of its claws shatters the stone floor, raising dust and rock fragments across the landscape. The young assassin retreats, performing a backflip, while the hero remains steadfast behind his shield of light. The protagonist extends his arm, releasing a burst of bluish energy to repel the opponent once and for all. The force of the attack violently throws the boy against the ground, creating a huge crater in the dark arena. Even after suffering that brutal impact, the boy gets up, laughing terrifyingly amidst the dust. The hero adjusts his fighting stance and challenges the young man to a real fight to see if he truly has any worth. The two warriors collide at high speed, creating a flash of light and releasing immense magical pressure. Suddenly, the immense silhouette of a giant purple snake appears behind them, abruptly interrupting the fight. The beautiful examiner officially introduces herself as Noise Hameln and warns them not to get too carried away in the arena. The boy roars furiously, telling the woman not to interfere because that new warrior is exclusively his prey. She stares at him with an icy, glittery look, intimidatingly commenting that he's a rebellious child. The giant snake's tail strikes the boy squarely, throwing his body against the wall in a merciless punishment. Noise simply smiled sweetly, advising him to listen attentively and respectfully when his elders spoke. The young prodigy groaned in pain on the floor, utterly furious at having been interrupted in such a humiliating way. The boy yells at her to stop treating people like toys, while channeling his aura to heal their wounds. The protagonist watches the scene in astonishment, realizing the opponent's impressive regenerative abilities. He stares at the bizarre pair before him, seriously wondering if those two monsters are still human. The beautiful woman kindly suggests that the hero also put away his magic weapons if he wants to get out of there alive today. The protagonist deactivates his power, aware that this woman is far more dangerous than the boy he faced. She takes a few elegant steps toward the hero, mischievously asking if he happens to be interested in. Noise whispers in his ear, asking if his true objective is to gain access to the guild's secret library. She claims that this is the only reason someone would be so obsessed with the S rank and offers help in exchange for obedience. The hero stares at her suspiciously, wanting to know immediately what the real intention is behind that suspicious offer. She explains that she has her own secret plans and that she needs a strong and obedient warrior to carry them out. The beautiful woman embraces him provocatively from behind, complimenting the protagonist on being young, strong, and very handsome. She whispers very close to him, saying that she specifically needs someone with the same extraordinary qualities as him. The hero coldly walks away, commenting that the offer seems good, but the price being asked is too high and too dangerous. She turns around smiling and warns that if he refuses, she will do everything to sabotage his every move from now on. The examiner calls the boy to leave, while the young prodigy complains about being given orders all the time. Gaia points towards the protagonist, solemnly swearing that she will be solely responsible for taking his life in the future. The hero reflects that the whole situation has become very irritating, but he keeps his revenge plan firmly in mind. He vows to himself that he will destroy absolutely any obstacle in his path to hasten his great revenge. A week passes and the scene shows the protagonist standing in the middle of a grand temple, surrounded by immense blue energy. The guild receptionist screams in complete shock, unable to believe the news she has just received from him. She stares at a colossal stack of completed mission documents, while the hero silently nods in agreement. He hands over the final sheets, calmly stating that he has successfully completed absolutely all the contracts sent. The girl trembled with nervousness, commenting that normally a common murderer would take at least 2 years to do all that. He silently reflects that such speed would be impossible for any ordinary human being in that world. But since the hero inhabits an artificial puppet body, he is immune to fatigue and doesn't need to eat or sleep. She reviews the perfect reports and guarantees that with that success rate, he will be promoted to rank D on the spot. He asks what the next step is, and she explains that from rank C onwards, he will need special recommendations. But she reveals that the hero has already received a direct indication from the powerful noise Hamon, completely by surprise. The girl hands him a sealed envelope informing him that he has also received a special, exclusive assassination contract. Upon opening the letter, the hero reads that the objective is specifically to eliminate an adventurer classified as rank D. The receptionist remarks that the recommendation is unbelievable, and the hero asks if it's really that unusual. She confirms this by saying that Noise is simply the leader of the most powerful and influential faction in the entire Dark Guild. The girl concludes by saying that the last person she personally recruited was the feared prodigy Gaia. The protagonist remembers the conversation with the villain and realizes that she is playing a well-planned game from the shadows. He wonders what her real objective is in trying to gather so many skilled subordinates around her. He examines the small card with a lip print that bears the enigmatic and provocative phrase kiss or bite. He repeats the riddle thoughtfully, trying to decipher the true meaning of that hidden message left in the envelope. The scene shifts to the exterior of a beautiful medieval palace under a sunny blue sky dotted with white clouds. Inside the hall, several armored adventurers chat animatedly, drinking and organizing their equipment. The hero silently observes the busy location, confirming that it is the meeting point indicated in the letter. He walks through the bustling hall of the official Adventurers Guild, disguised so as not to attract unwanted attention. Suddenly, a well-dressed, smiling young blonde man waves cheerfully to the protagonist in the middle of the crowd. The blonde man approaches, asking if he is the adventurer Ray, and the hero simply confirms with a calm nod. He introduces himself as Alexis Sline, the skilled swordsman and leader of the group of adventurers known as the Wings of Steel. The two exchange a friendly handshake, and the protagonist pretends to be just an inexperienced newcomer seeking advice. The leader smiles, saying he is relieved because adventurers with the magic bag skill are extremely rare. The protagonist smiles back, feigning agreement, while planning his next steps to complete his mission. The magic pouch ability is coveted for allowing the storage of an immense amount of cargo within a dimensional space. In fact, the hero uses one of his mythical storage tools to perfectly replicate that effect. He intends to use the disguise of a rookie porter to approach the target without raising any suspicion whatsoever. The blonde leader turns enthusiastically to introduce the other members who complete the exploration group. It introduces the sweet cleric Carisha as a healer, and the sullen young man Ein as the one responsible for the ambushes. The cleric Carisha Noir merely averts her gaze in silence, her expression shy and thoughtful before the hero. The young thief Einbot grumbles disdainfully, warning that he has no interest whatsoever in befriending a newcomer. He dismissively warns that he just wants to finish the mission quickly, collect the reward money, and disband that group. The blonde leader tries to calm things down by hugging his irritated companion and asking everyone to try to get along. Ein finally loses his patience and grabs a heavy vase of flowers that was decorating the wooden table next to him. In a fit of rage, he throws the vase, breaking it over the leader's head, and shouts, ordering him never to touch him again. The cleric is startled, while the leader tries to downplay the blow by laughing and apologizing for his lack of tact. The protagonist observes that deplorable scene, thinking that this is by far the group with the worst chemistry he has ever seen. He reflects that he doesn't know what terrible motive led someone to order the death of that young blonde leader. But he focuses his icy gaze on Alexis Sline's smiling face, knowing that his fate is already sealed there. The hero coldly concludes that to achieve his ultimate goal, that young swordsman will have to die today. A week earlier, Alexis had stood at a meeting table with holographic figures discussing a dungeon. He gives a greedy smile, promising his mysterious superiors that he will ensure the item is recovered. Alexis reveals that the main target of her search is the legendary mythical item that Riot Berger himself left behind in the past. Back in the present, the group finally enters the first floor of the dark and dangerous underground stone dungeon. Alexis excels on the front lines, activating her parrying technique to completely nullify the enemy's blows. He blocks the overwhelming punch of a huge, flaming stone golem that guarded the depths of that corridor. The giant flaming monster is pushed back after its violent charge is completely neutralized. Ein seizes the perfect opening and leaps from above, his daggers sharpened and ready to deliver a lethal blow. He uses his special deception ability to create optical illusions and completely confuse the golem's vision. With a furious cry, he plunges his gleaming blade into the core of the mud monster, causing it to disintegrate. Ein delivers the final blow to the mud monster with his sharp dagger, causing a small explosion of golden light. The golem's enormous stone body begins to completely disintegrate, scattering shimmering dust throughout the room. Alexis celebrates the victory and informs the group that they can now proceed towards the main chamber of the dungeon. The protagonist silently analyzes the fight, thinking that the monsters there are too easy and slow for a D-rank player. He reflects that in these times of peace, the required skill level of combat adventurers has declined considerably. The blonde leader crouches down to collect the bright golden magic stone left on the ground by the defeated monster. He hands the precious item to the hero, asking him to keep it in the dimensional bag, and the protagonist obeys immediately. Alexis smiles gratefully, saying that having that cargo rack really makes things much easier. Riot reflects that killing the blonde man would be easy, but he needs to stage a perfect accident to leave no trace of the crime. He knows very well that choosing the exact moment for the fatal attack will be crucial to the mission's success. The group finally stops in front of a huge red wooden door that provides direct access to the boss's chamber. Upon opening the doors, they come face to face with the dungeon's terrifying boss, a stone giant engulfed in intense flames. Alexis points to the back of the chamber, reminding everyone that the real objective there is simply to recover the hidden treasure chest. The chest, locked with heavy chains and a large iron padlock, sits atop a stone structure. He explains that inside the chest there is a valuable mythical magic tool that will bring them all a lot of money. The blonde man finishes by saying that if they manage to retrieve the chest safely, they won't have to fight the boss now. Ein indignantly questions him, stating that it is impossible to reach the treasure without first defeating that giant monster. He points out that the boss blocks the entire path and that entering the combat zone unprepared would be suicide. Alexis lets out a sinister smile, acknowledging the gravity of the situation, and prepares to reveal her cruel plan. He reveals that even the greatest guild of heroes failed in this mission, leaving his partner Ein completely terrified. Alexis calmly steps forward, reassuring the group by saying he has a secret card up his sleeve. Suddenly, in a cowardly act of betrayal, the leader pushes the cleric Carisha directly into the boss's attack zone. Carisha turns around in complete shock, unable to understand the reason for her own leader's cruel behavior. She falls helplessly to the floor of the boss's chamber, while the young thief Ein cries out desperately for his companion's name. The giant flaming golem immediately detects the intruder and begins to move with devastating fury toward her. Ein runs in desperation and throws himself on top of the cleric to protect her from the immense stone fist that was descending towards them both. Alexis observes the entire scene with a wicked smile, coldly commenting that the stone giant has finally awakened. The young thief shouts, cursing the leader and calling him a traitor, but Alexis tells him to shut up, explaining that it's all part of the plan. The blonde man reveals that as long as someone keeps the boss occupied in combat, a secret and safe path will open up to the side. The hero silently watches as stone platforms rise from the lava, creating a direct passage to the treasure chest. He excitedly explains that with the shortcut activated, he can grab the valuable item and complete the mission without having to fight the monster. Ein roars with hatred upon realizing that the leader used his own group companion as a disposable live bait. Alexis laughs insanely, claiming that commoners exist only to serve as stepping stones to his life of luxury. Ein angrily retorts, mocking the fact that Alexis is merely a bankrupt nobleman who has lost all his former social status. The blonde man's smile instantly vanishes, and he tells his companion to shut up, calling him gutter trash. He reveals with a psychopathic look that he knows very well all the secrets the two are trying to hide from the group. The blonde man reveals that he knows about the secret relationship, and the acts considered impure that the two committed in secret. Ain is completely speechless when her secret is revealed, while the young cleric simply cries in shame. He reminds them that the loss of purity by a female cleric is an unforgivable taboo and will result in her execution by the Inquisition. Alexis's sadistic smile widens, and he asserts that they are perfectly aware of the terrible fate that awaits them in the church. Carisha trembles with fear and cries silently as she remembers the cruel punishments she would receive if the case were reported. Ain shouts, advancing furiously against the traitorous leader, wanting to end the blackmailer's life right there. Alexis laughs and warns that he doesn't have time to worry about fighting, since the golem is about to attack them in the arena. The colossal flaming stone golem roars furiously and raises its immense rock fist, preparing a crushing blow. The giant beast focuses its destructive gaze directly on the helpless cleric, who lies paralyzed with terror on the ground. The immense fist, engulfed in flames, descends at high speed, cutting through the air and promising to crush everything below. A devastating explosion of fire and rocks occurs as the golem's violent attack destroys the platform. In the midst of the smoke, Ain coughs violently and desperately hugs the girl, asking if she can still move from there. But before they could escape, the enormous stone monster raised its fist again, preparing for another deadly attack. Ain grinds his teeth in sheer despair and tries to carry the cleric on his back, even though he knows he won't have time to swerve. Alexis watches the two running away and coldly decides to leave them behind to die in the dungeon. He calls the protagonist, ordering him to run quickly to ensure the safety and transport of the chest. Alexis warns that if they both die, the secret path will close, and they need to retrieve the chest before that happens. He says he doesn't know what magical item is inside the chest, but he's counting on his dimensional bag to carry it. The protagonist simply listens to everything in complete silence, maintaining his disguise as a harmless newcomer to the group. Riot thinks that leader is truly a complete human piece of trash, perfectly justifying his death contract. But instead of going to the chest, the hero calmly walks towards the battle, stating that he will not abandon anyone. The protagonist advances with firm steps toward the colossal flaming golem that was preparing its next attack. Alexis laughs, calling him stupid and mockingly saying that a mere baggage handler can't do anything there. He warns that the young man will die in vain, but the hero merely smiles and activates his incredible power of magical materialization. A massive burst of blue energy flashes across the area as he summons the legendary holy sword Excalibur. The hero's gaze gleams intensely with a bluish hue, revealing his immense and overwhelming combat power. With a single, precise movement of his sacred sword, he unleashes a gigantic slash of light that shatters the entire stone chamber. Alexis goes into a complete state of shock, alongside his teammates who witness that unbelievable scene. The hero silently sheathes his sword as the blue particles of his magic begin to dissipate into the warm air. Ain and Carisha remain paralyzed on the ground, unable to comprehend how a mere novice possesses so much strength. The hero apologizes quietly and announces that from that moment on, the entire area will be closed off. He uses the mystical perfume of silence, causing the pair of companions to instantly fall into a deep sleep. Alexis begins to tremble with terror as she realizes that the giant golem was completely destroyed with just one blow. Completely terrified, the blonde leader points his finger at the hero, demanding to know who he really is. The hero responds with an icy whisper, revealing his true and legendary name, Riot Berger. The protagonist stares at him with a deadly look and warns with absolute coldness that he came there only to kill him. His slow, silent footsteps echoed through the stone room as the young man prepared to finalize the contract. A strong gust of wind cut through the dungeon air, trapping the blonde swordsman against the stone wall. Alexis sweats nervously upon hearing the legendary warrior's name and completely panics when faced with that opponent. He tries to force a hysterical laugh, saying it's ridiculous for a mere porter to use the name of a legend from the past. But noticing the protagonist's seriousness, he trembles, asking if the hero is also after the mystical item. The protagonist is slightly surprised and intrigued to hear the blonde man mention the theft of his magical creations. The hero asks where he got that information, and Alexis deduces that he approached the group purely out of self-interest. Alexis shouts angrily, saying that the valuable relic belongs exclusively to him and tries to fight back. But with a single precise movement, the hero shatters Alexis's blade into several pieces. He warns that since he was the one who defeated the boss monster, he will be the only one responsible for opening the treasure chest. The blonde man rages, calling the protagonist a coward for hiding his magical power only to steal the item in the end. The hero ignores the insults and opens the chest, revealing that inside there are only a few vials of red potion. He holds one of the vials and realizes with disappointment that it is just an ordinary potion and not one of his mythical items. The protagonist deduces that the blonde man was deceived by someone, but concludes that the clue about his royal relics is true. The hero focuses his suspicions on Sir Haste, wondering if the blonde knight in armor is behind it all. Alexis approaches with greed, truly believing that this ordinary potion is the valuable legendary artifact she's been searching for. The blonde man orders him to hand over the potion, but the hero gives a mocking smile and suggests making a financial deal. Alexis is completely confused and doesn't understand the point of the negotiation proposal made by the assassin. Riot pretends to negotiate, saying he can sell the item if the blonde man is willing to pay an extremely high price. The swordsman roars furiously, stating that he doesn't care about his history and that he needs that item no matter what. Through clenched teeth, he warns that if the hero doesn't hand over the vial willingly, he will take it by force right there. The protagonist stares at him coldly, remembering that the blonde man had already witnessed his overwhelming strength against the giant golem. Alexis swallowed hard and recoiled, trembling as he remembered how easily the stone monster had been sliced apart in the dungeon. Seeing that he has no chance in a direct fight, the blonde man surrenders and agrees to negotiate, asking what the price is. The hero smiles, demanding the absurd and impossible fortune of 100 million gold coins for all the vials. Alexis becomes completely desperate, shouting that that absurd amount of money would be enough to buy a mansion in the capital. The hero mockingly suggests that he ask his secret master for help, revealing his plan to extract information from him. Alexis clenches his teeth, consumed by a blind rage, yelling at the protagonist to stop mocking him in the dungeon. Alexis boasts that he works for the influential Fire Dragon clan, and that 100 million is just pocket change for them. The hero reflects silently, confirming that it is indeed that large guild of adventurers that provides him with the information. The blonde man orders him to hand over the vial immediately, and the protagonist agrees to proceed with the deal. The protagonist throws the vials at Alexis with complete indifference, as if the potions had no value whatsoever. The blonde swordsman grabs the vials in midair with extreme greed, letting out a victorious laugh amidst the scene. Alexis flashes a psychopathic smile, mocking the protagonist and calling the hero a complete idiot for trusting him. He shouts as he runs away, declaring that the item is his passport back to nobility and that he would never pay anything for it. Riot simply smiles, saying he had expected that betrayal, and discreetly pulls out his magical stake tool. In a fraction of a second, the invisible sharp threads close around Alexis, trapping him violently. The blonde man's eyes widened in confusion as he felt the sharp lines slicing his skin and spilling his blood onto the floor. Blood spurts violently through the large doors, sealing the arrogant nobleman's tragic fate in the dungeon. Alexis's body completely disintegrates in a pool of blood, confirming the success of the assassination. The protagonist stares at him with disdain, stating with utter coldness that the swordsman was already marked for death there. A short time later, the young thief Ein slowly begins to regain consciousness and move on the floor of the chamber. The hero greets him, saying he's relieved he's awake, and asks how he's feeling physically now. Ein immediately remembers the mortal danger and screams in panic, desperately calling out Carisha's name. He glances to the side and sees the cleric resting peacefully, leaning against the stone column with no danger nearby. The hero reports that she is doing great and is only sleeping, because all of her serious injuries have completely healed. He lies casually, feigning regret, and claims that Alexis fell into a fatal trap and died. Ein observes the enormous trail of blood on the ground, shocked to realize that the traitorous leader has truly met his end. The hero invents a story that the blonde boy tried to steal the chest and run away alone, making the young thief understand the situation. Ein admiringly praises the hero for defeating that colossal dungeon boss with just a single attack. The protagonist scratches his head, feigning shyness, saying he just threw some random magic item and got lucky in combat. The young thief stares at him with a bead of sweat on his face, finding that excuse of luck both humble and bizarre. He remarks that the boy is very lucky and a born adventurer in combat, and the hero simply thanks him with a smile. In this movement, the young cleric Carisha begins to stir, yawning slowly as she awakens from her deep sleep. Ein hugs her, relieved and celebrating her awakening, while the protagonist observes the scene with a serene and satisfied look. The hero smiles amiably, suggesting they all start walking back to the dungeon exit together. After delivering the official mission report to the Adventurers Guild, the three go their separate ways in the kingdom. The hero watches the young couple waving from afar, fondly remembering that they used to date in secret to avoid the church. He recalls that the terrible blonde leader used blackmail to coerce the cleric and stole all the reward money. But now that the blackmailer is dead, the protagonist sincerely wishes that the young couple can be happy. The hero walks calmly through the beautiful city square, knowing he has completed another important step in his journey of revenge. Back at the Black Guild headquarters, the receptionist congratulates the protagonist on his excellent work in the promotion mission. The girl smiled, quite excited, commenting that she had expected that absurd speed from a warrior like him. She hands over the documents confirming that he is now rank C, and the hero immediately asks what his next contract will be. The receptionist informs him that his new task will be to escort the powerful noise Hameln on an exploration expedition. The hero is put on high alert when he discovers that Noise's mission is directly related to the theft of his relics. He realizes that the mystery of his mythical items has resurfaced, even though that information was supposed to be a military secret. Riot seriously suspects that someone high-ranking is leaking classified data and decides to accelerate his hunt for the client. He knows very well that he needs to recover all his mythical weapons before the villain uses them to spread total chaos. The scene shifts to the luxurious meeting room of the Fire Dragon clan, where holographic figures converse around the table. A bearded man with glasses angrily complains, calling the deceased Alexis useless for failing at such a simple mission. A holographic woman laughs, commenting that at least the blonde guy understood the real reason he was kicked out of his family. Another member asks about the mystical item, and the bearded man replies that, as expected, the dungeon treasure was fake. One of the holographic officers states seriously that even with that failure, they cannot delay the main plan. The evil plan consists of plunging the entire world back into absolute chaos to guarantee the clan's eternal power. The warrior standing before the table bows, asking if the final decision is acceptable to the clan's vice-captain. The vice-captain named Tyrio smiles cynically, claiming that this choice is in accordance with the orders of the Sword Star. The scene cuts to the entrance of the hidden dungeon Taurus, where the powerful Noise Hameln stands before the ice portal. Noise Hameln turns around, smiling seductively to greet the hero, commenting that he ended up being a little late. She ironically calls him her most promising newcomer as the protagonist emerges imposingly from the portal. The protagonist stares at her seriously, reminding her that she holds the prestigious second position in the entire S ranking. He knows very well that the woman in front of him is the dangerous and extremely feared assassin Noise Hameln. The hero complains about the unusual location of the meeting and the absurd one-hour deadline to reach the hidden dungeon. Noise retorted with a sarcastic smile, claiming that if he had been acting serious, he would have arrived there much faster. The protagonist stares at her coldly, wanting to know the real reason that makes her think so suspiciously. The villain lifts a small fragment of bright blue magic crystal, preparing to make a shocking revelation. She throws the magic crystal back, declaring that all that doubt is about to be properly cleared up. The magical blue artifact crashes forcefully against the great glaciers of the dungeon, releasing immense cosmic energy. A powerful explosion of energy and shattered ice suddenly occurs, shaking the entire structure of the chamber. From the midst of the cold fog emerges the gigantic boss of the ice dungeon, roaring with great fury before the motionless hero. The terrifying ice monster unleashes a devastating attack, bringing its frozen rock fist down on the protagonist. The brutal impact shatters the ground, generating an immense cloud of freezing smoke and shattering ice blocks all around. The hero uses his sacred aegis to block the attack and admits that each punch from that giant is incredibly heavy. He knows his puppet body won't suffer real damage, but he reflects that defeating that beast will be quite a challenge. The giant continues to unleash a series of heavy and destructive attacks against the shining magical barrier. The hero dodges with agile leaps and asks the villain if it's true that the dungeon hides a mythical relic. Noise confesses with mockery and cynicism that the story was a lie, used only to lure the hero to that cold chamber. The protagonist is slightly surprised by that response, revealing that he was deceived by his new elite contractor. The dungeon master seizes the moment of distraction to launch yet another deadly attack toward the warrior. The hero lands on the ground and questions her seriously, wanting to know how much she really knows about her relics. The villainess stares at him closely with a mysterious smile, confirming that she knows perfectly well the power of those legendary items. The hero coldly asks if the whole situation in the ice dungeon was just a test to measure his strength. Noise points smilingly at the giant monster and warns it that it will end up dying if it continues to divert its attention. The colossal ice golem raises its arm covered in sharp stalactites once more, preparing its crushing blow. But the protagonist leaps at high speed, channeling an immense and destructive reddish aura from his hands. He summons the dreaded Scarlet Whip of Lament, while the villainess watches the combat intently from above. The The red energy threads of the whip close around the monster's horn, spectacularly immobilizing it. Then he uses another of his magical creations, manifesting in the air the legendary and gleaming Excalibur sword. With a single, divine and devastating slash, the hero decapitates the colossal ice monster in mere seconds. The giant's frozen body crumbles, disintegrating completely, while the young man lands gracefully on the ground. Noise analyzes him in astonishment, commenting that she thought she would be able to gauge the warrior's true power in that combat. She is surprised to realize that the boy fought effortlessly and that he still possesses an immense reserve of hidden power. The beautiful villainess walks slowly towards him, the sound of her high heels echoing mysteriously through the room. She maliciously remarks that the boy resembles a terrifying demon, pretending to be just an ordinary, lowly human. The hero retorts, finding the peculiar accusation amusing, but Noise insists on his hunch with utmost conviction. The villain stares him in the eyes and states directly that she is absolutely certain he is not a real human being. She raises her hand, channeling her dark aura, and manifests once more her fearsome and gigantic purple magical serpent. The viper's scaly head comes within millimeters of the protagonist's face, who remains motionless without even blinking. The snake threatens to deliver a lethal bite to his forehead, but the hero maintains his completely cold and indifferent demeanor. Noise smiles victoriously, stating that such a complete lack of reaction to a surprise attack would be impossible. He simply strokes the snake's head, calmly replying that he was only surprised by the speed of the summoning. She insists that any warrior would try to dodge if caught off guard and that not blinking is bizarre. The protagonist simply ignores her suspicions and prepares to steer the conversation away from his true identity. She says she followed in his footsteps and ended up at a famous hardware store that was destroyed by fire. The villain reveals that she discovered the story about the elderly merchant who lived there alone with his beloved grandson, leaving the hero surprised. She says that while examining the corpses of the victims of the tragedy, she ended up noticing something extremely important there. Noise reveals with a triumphant smile that he has discovered that the old merchant was in fact the legendary weapons maker. The scene ends mysteriously, leaving the ultimate revelation of the hero's greatest and most closely guarded secret hanging in the air. A ferocious monster suddenly lunges at the hero and the villain, unleashing an attack with its giant weapon. Noise coldly informs her opponent that she is currently conversing and demands that he not dare interrupt her. The tail of its enormous purple serpent surges into the air and crushes its opponent against the rocky ground with extreme force. The hero faces the villain with complete seriousness, asking what that old story has to do with him. She reveals her intriguing hypothesis, questioning whether he might be the legendary creator of mythical items. Noise smirks and pronounces the legendary name of Riot Berger, staring intently into the hero's eyes. She recalls the legend of the young genius capable of rivaling an S-rank fighter and possessing spectacular abilities. The protagonist listens to her deductions in silence, realizing that this theory would explain everything that happened. The villain questions whether that legendary warrior who should be dead has somehow been resurrected. She smiles mischievously, saying she can't help but think that this is exactly the real story. Noise stares at him provocatively and with a mysterious look, asks him to reveal the whole truth about himself. She asks him directly where he really came from, and the hero simply observes her without showing any reaction. Riot closes his eyes thoughtfully as he listens to that question about his true origins and his mysterious past. He recalls visions of his past life, marked by violent battles in the memory of a smiling child. Dark memories of betrayal and a terrible, violent death flash quickly through the young warrior's mind. The protagonist opens his eyes, refocusing on the present, and prepares to answer the persistent questioner. Riot moves his hand, releasing invisible threads, and coldly warns that he cannot answer that question at all. The giant armored monster is suddenly cornered and completely immobilized by the hero's magical blue ropes. The beast desperately tries to break free, but the sharp wires close even tighter around its body. Riot raises his arm, channeling his magical energy to activate his incredible ability to create magical items. A colossal, gleaming hammer appears in the air, enveloped in green lightning, revealing the legendary mystical weapon Mjolnir. The giant monster roars in terror upon seeing the immense and destructive magic weapon floating right in front of it in the chamber. The protagonist stares at him with absolute seriousness as he prepares the command to unleash the devastating attack. The legendary hammer Mjolnir descends with a violent and destructive impact, generating an immense explosion of green lightning. Riot warns with a grim smile that if necessary, he will have to deal with her in the same violent manner as before. The hero walks imposingly through the dust, coldly warning her that she must cooperate if she doesn't want to die there. He points his sharp sword directly at the villainess's neck, ordering her to be quiet and cooperate with him. The protagonist assures her with a penetrating gaze that if she cooperates, he will not treat her badly. The girl laughs and pushes the blade away, saying that threats don't work on her because he would have killed her already if he wanted to. Noise smiles victoriously, stating that he needs her help to achieve the coveted S rank. The hero corrects him, saying that what he's really looking for is accurate information on a serious matter. She smiles broadly and agrees, showing that she is very interested in hearing what the young man wants to know. He reveals with a serious look that he wants to know the whole truth about the culprit who murdered him in the past. Riot remembers the mysterious mastermind known as the Client, who possessed S-rank strength and a mark on his face. Noise is intrigued and repeats, surprised, the information about the killer having a scar or facial mark. The hero asks if she knows anything, but the villain dodges the question, saying she won't reveal any information for free. The protagonist clenches his teeth in irritation upon realizing that she is refusing to cooperate amicably there. She smiles mischievously, assuring that she will cooperate, but demands that the master-servant relationship be very clear. Noise approaches and presses against his chest, warning him that he will have to obey all his orders to get the answers. The young man sighs irritably, thinking about how troublesome and tiring it will be to have to deal with that pushy woman. She whispers that there is no choice, as it would be a huge waste to let a power that could change the world slip away. The villain says she will use his strength for her own purposes and that their interests are well aligned there. The protagonist reluctantly accepts the proposal but seriously demands that she fulfill her part of the agreement. She smiles in agreement and suggests they return to the Adventurers Guild immediately without wasting any more time. As they walk out, Noise reflects silently, confirming his certainty that he is indeed Riot Berger. With a somber and focused look, she begins to plot her next steps in light of this great discovery. The villainess grinned wickedly, thinking she needed to find a way to use that formidable warrior to her advantage. The hero observes a luxurious gold-decorated door and asks, confused, where they've just arrived in the building. She shows him her enormous office, explaining that S-rank adventurers receive high-level private rooms. Riot understands the explanation and directly asks what their next step should be. Noise calms the boy down and opens a folder of reports, saying he has very special information for him. She shows a document with a list of investigated members of the Fire Dragon Clan Veterans Association. Riot analyzes the report, noting that this clan provided the secret data about their mythical relics. The villain explains that this Veterans Association serves to provide financial support, but hides much bigger secrets. The hero is surprised when Noise reveals that the group of retirees managed to get their hands on a mythical item. She says that an investigation mission has been opened, and the young man immediately asks who made that request. The royal army to which the protagonist belonged lost the relic and is now desperately searching for it. Riot asks which item was stolen, but Noise says that this extremely important information was not revealed. She confirms that she wants him to investigate the group, and assures him that solving the case will earn him a B-rank hero. Noise winks mischievously, asking if that deal doesn't seem perfect and extremely advantageous for both of them. The young man agrees, but coldly points out that achieving only rank B is not yet enough for his plans. The warrior leaves the area, demanding that she prepare an S-rank mission for when he returns. He walks down the corridor thinking that tracking down the mythical items is the best way to find his ultimate target. Riot clenches his fist in fury, determined to get his revenge and prevent his weapons from being used for evil. He knows very well that to achieve his great goal, he cannot afford to stop in a place like this. The scene cuts to the bustling and noisy official headquarters of the powerful clan of adventurers known as the Fire Dragon. A wooden mug is slammed against the table with extreme force while someone shouts that they've fallen into a trap. Subleader Hyona raged furiously, complaining that the dungeon, which should have been rank B, was actually rank S. A bearded warrior laughs at her outburst, trying to calm his irritated companion. The A-rank adventurer named Rex asks the young warrior with a relaxed smile to simply calm down. He thanks her for defeating the boss monster, saving everyone, and making a great profit from rare materials. Hyona complains that he's too relaxed, as she picks up a piece of bread from the table to start eating calmly. Dino states emphatically that it was precisely because of this careless attitude that he ended up being expelled from an S-rank group. Rex roars angrily, ordering the young man to shut up and stating that he left the group on his own accord so he could help Hyona. The warrior sighs, saying that if she had known about his terrible drinking habits, she would never have agreed to be his partner. She slams her hand on the table, interrupting her colleague's silly discussion to talk about a very serious matter. Hyona pulls his colleague by the collar, stating that those old men from the association want to get rid of the reformists. She says the portal's ranking error was intentional, designed to make them die in what should have appeared to be just an accident. Dino mentions that he heard rumors about a mysterious and very suspicious man frequenting the headquarters of that association. The red-haired warrior's gaze becomes extremely sharp and tense as she absorbs that intriguing revelation. She clenches her fist, stating firmly that if they want to kill them, they should attack and act first. Rex holds her hand, asking her to calm down, and considers that such violent behavior is far too extreme against the clan's founders. Dino says that since they are not S-rank, the only viable alternative is to gather more allies for the cause. Hyona and Rex look intrigued at their companion, who confirms the need to find new strength for the group. The young man describes that they need someone with a flexible mind and a strong sense of justice who is not afraid of threats. He continues describing the perfect requirements, while a mysterious person finally opens the door to the place. Dino concludes by saying that this ally must be considerably stronger than any S-rank hero. Hyona wonders, disillusioned, if a formidable warrior of that caliber truly exists, or if it's just a silly fantasy. While they are talking, a bully approaches the protagonist, who is passing by, staring at him as if he were just any newcomer. The red-haired warrior thinks that perhaps they should train someone strong on their own to be their ideal ally. The bully bursts into laughter, mocking the idea, and says that the only idiots who would follow it would be weirdos like Dino. Hyona gets annoyed, telling them to stop with that ridiculous joke and focus on coming up with a truly useful idea. Suddenly, a violent crash occurs as the bully is thrown far away, destroying tables on impact. The protagonist adjusts his gloves, sighing boredly, and complains that hazing rituals for newcomers really do happen everywhere. The teammates look back in surprise, commenting that the newcomer is definitely a hothead. The redhead stares at the young man in complete silence, trying to understand what has just happened before her eyes. Hyona's eyes widened in sheer astonishment as her mind tried to process the absurd speed of that blow. She reflects that she had been keeping an eye on the boy because he was a new face, but she didn't notice any signs of aggression from him. The warrior concludes, horrified, that she was completely unable to react before seeing the brutes flying through the tavern. She realizes that he struck the vital points with perfect precision, controlling the exact amount of force so as not to kill them. Hyona's smile widened with excitement, absolutely certain that the mysterious young man was of rank S or higher. Rex calls her, confused, as she runs off, thinking that any ordinary person would have missed that detail. The other henchmen begin to stand up angrily and shout, telling the protagonist not to mess with them there. One of them angrily questions where he thinks he is, while the hero simply stares at him with utter boredom and disdain. Before the fight continues, Hyona suddenly appears in front of the hero, shouting to get his attention. The redhead points directly at the young man's chest, asking if he's interested in joining their clan. The hero simply observes her in silence with a calm expression, while waiting for her to finish stating her proposal. Hyona flashes a beautiful smile and makes the final invitation, suggesting that the young man join her group directly. Hyona gives a beautiful smile and invites Ray to join her group of adventurers. Ray is surprised by the invitation, while Dino explains that they are looking for someone as strong as him. One of the henchmen complains about the decision, but Hyona tells him to shut up immediately. The redhead turns back to the boy and asks what he thinks of the proposal. He declines the invitation with a smile, saying he doesn't intend to join a fixed group. Ray silently reflects that he needs to act alone to disappear from there without problems after the mission. Hyona regrets the refusal and asks if he really prefers to work alone. She extends her hand in a friendly manner, telling him to look for her if he needs anything. The redhead finally introduces herself as Hyona, the second in command of that clan of adventurers. He shakes her hand, introducing himself as Ray, and promises to count on her if he needs anything. The story goes that the Fire Dragon clan was founded by Meltson Hilt and Pilsner Hajek. These legendary heroes became famous in the past for defeating the fearsome dragon Zaraksail. Among all the members, the one who stood out the most was Dunkel Slane, the dragon hunter. A luxurious carriage arrives at the location, bringing a very important guest to the meeting. Veteran Dunkel Slane appears with an imposing posture and a very serious look. Meanwhile, the protagonist discreetly observes all the activity from above. He mentions that Dunkel is the uncle of Alexis Slane, the nobleman he recently murdered. Ray recalls that records showed Dunkel controlled all the noble's money. The hero deduces that it was probably the old man who told Alexis about the mythical items. Ray begins to follow the old man's carriage, stealthily leaping across the city rooftops. He reflects that the veteran's public activities greatly facilitate the investigation. The carriage finally stops in front of a busy establishment at night. Dunkel steps down from the carriage and is greeted with reverence by a local employee. The hero lands on the neighboring rooftop, carefully watching his target's every move below. Ray surveys the establishment and immediately realizes what kind of place it is. The place is actually an underground casino with a luxurious VIP area. Inside, a nobleman celebrates, saying that the plan and the capture of the mythical item were a success. The hooded man praises the veteran Dunkel for the brilliant execution of his plans. The mysterious hooded man smiles sinisterly, knowing that everything is going well. Ray uses his magic spider to listen to the conversation and wonders if the hooded figure is the leader. The man laments that world peace has drastically reduced profits from dungeons. Dunkel thinks the terrible idea of trying to resurrect that creature is insane madness. The hooded figure maliciously retorts, stating that the greater the chaos, the better for them. The veteran remains impressed by the audacity of the plan, although he still has reservations. From the rooftop, the hero listens intently to every detail of that somber conversation. The conspirators reveal that the creature to be revived is the legendary dragon Zaraksail. If the monster is revived, its immense power will awaken hordes of monsters across the region. Dunkel delights in imagining the immense amount of gold and glory they will receive. The villain vows that the Fire Dragon clan will enter a new and prosperous golden age. Ray listens to the villain's ravings while feeling a great deal of anger at their selfish plan. The hero reflects on the dragon Zaraksail and realizes the magnitude of the approaching danger. Ray recalls that he himself sealed the dragon in the past using his powerful mythical weapons. The artifacts used in the sealing were two magical gourds of immense mystical power. If the effects of the relics are reversed, the capital will be completely destroyed. The hero decides with determination that he must prevent this catastrophe at all costs. Ray hears the hooded figure mention a third person involved in the evil plan. The villain insists he has complete control of the situation, but quickly changes the subject in the room. The hooded figure warns that he senses a strange presence eavesdropping on the conversation. He suspects that the detected presence is too subtle to belong to a human being. Ray's sound spider is suddenly cut in half, cutting off the audio transmission. The pieces of the destroyed magic spider fall silently to the floor of the room. The hooded man examines the fragments, realizing it was a spy spider. Ray watches from afar, maintaining a completely serious and focused expression. The hero recognizes that the enemy is sharp by noticing the item that barely emits mana. He regrets no longer being able to use the device to uncover the villain's entire plan. With no other choice, the protagonist decides that he will have to infiltrate the place personally. Meanwhile, the main hall of the underground casino remains packed with customers. Ray walks disguised through the hall, thinking about how they intend to control the dragon. Suddenly, a crucial memory flashes through the hero's mind, changing his expression. He remembers a mystical relic from the past capable of manipulating memories. Ray deduces that the accomplice mentioned must be the true bearer of this artifact. The hero begins to suspect the identity of the mysterious person behind it all. He hears a sudden noise and quickly turns to the side, alert. Ray holds the arm of a waitress dressed as a bunny who complains of pain at that moment. The boy's eyes widen as he realizes who the person he has just captured is. Hyona is shocked to recognize the young newcomer and asks what he's doing there. Ray says that's her line and questions her about being dressed that way. The redhead is extremely embarrassed when she finds herself caught wearing that provocative outfit. The boy asks if she works there and Hyona tries to explain herself, completely embarrassed. She begs him to keep it a secret, claiming she has important personal reasons. Hyona thinks she can't reveal to a newcomer that she's investigating the veterans. The hero merely murmurs that he understands while calmly analyzing the situation. Ray concludes that they both share the same goal of stopping the clan veterans. With a swift movement, the hero corners her against the wall, leaving the girl surprised. He whispers very close, asking if the invitation to the group still stands. Hyona asks if he's referring to the group, and the boy confirms with complete seriousness. He claims she dressed like that to get information about the secret room. Ray proposes to reveal Dunkel's secret plan if she agrees to cooperate with him now. The redhead is quite intrigued and wants to know how he found out about this meeting. She decides to accept the deal anyway in order to obtain evidence against the veteran. Hyona warns that she doesn't fully trust him yet, but she knows he's not a villain. She gives a confident smile, remembering that she's the clan's second-in-command for good reason. The boy smiled slightly, mentally thanking his lucky stars that he didn't have to give any more explanations. Ray asks her to cause a commotion in the hall to force the villains out of the room. The redhead gives a mischievous smile, assuring everyone that she has the perfect trick for the occasion. Ray watches curiously as she pulls a mysterious device from her clothing. She shows him a walkie-talkie, and the hero recognizes the device from afar. Quick, firm footsteps suddenly begin to echo through the hallways of the place. Armed soldiers storm the casino, shouting orders for no one to dare move. The gamblers are in despair when they see the surprise invasion of the royal army. The army commander announces that everyone present will be taken in for questioning. He orders everyone to stay where they are and warns that suspects will be punished immediately. Ray admits he didn't expect her to involve the royal armed forces in the plan. Hyona whispers that the building is surrounded and that the villains will have no way to escape. Ray warns that criminals of this caliber always have well-prepared escape routes. As predicted, the two villains are already running away through the dark sewer tunnels. The hooded man complains angrily, saying that the veteran is becoming too sloppy. Dunkel rages furiously, swearing that he paid generous bribes to avoid being caught red-handed. The hooded figure suggests they split up along the way to reduce the risk of capture. He reflects on his escape, suspecting that the timing of that police raid was too convenient. The hooded man climbs a ladder, concluding that the previous eavesdropping was not the work of the army. He emerges into a dark city alley, discreetly opening a wooden door to escape. The villain fears that the plan's secret information has been leaked to a third party. The criminal knows he can't waste any time and rushes to put the plan into action quickly. Suddenly, a small magical flame appears, flying behind him and unexpectedly striking his shoulder. His eyes widened in shock as he realized he had been hit by a fire spell out of nowhere. The villain dodges a flaming torch thrown at him, sensing a lurking presence. Ray emerges from the shadows, delivering an extremely fast physical blow against his opponent. The protagonist lands gracefully on the stone floor as the smoke begins to spread. Ray lands a devastating downward kick that sends the enemy flying back with great force. The hooded man gritted his teeth, feeling the violent impact of the hero's surprise attack. The villain slides across the alley's cobblestone floor, trying to regain his balance after the blow. The hero calmly walks towards his opponent, keeping his steps firm and determined. The enemy rises in surprise upon realizing that a mere army scout possesses such physical strength. He confronts the protagonist, stating that he is no ordinary soldier and demands to know what he wants. Ray says he just wants to ask a few questions about the secret meeting he had with Dunkel. The villain smiles, realizing that the mysterious boy was the one who had been snooping around. He draws his gleaming dagger and mockingly warns that he has no obligation to answer. The opponent charges at high speed towards the hero, initiating direct combat right there. The enemy suddenly activates one of their special advanced combat techniques. He uses the ability to dive into shadows, making the protagonist look at the ground in surprise. The villain suddenly reappears from Ray's shadow, preparing to strike with his blade. Ray notices the attack coming from behind and prepares to counterattack in a fraction of a second. The hero reacts instantly, blocking the deadly attack with a precise strike of red light. The villain is completely shocked to see his weapon bound by crimson magical chains. Ray praises his opponent's rare technique, but reveals that he was already expecting something of this caliber. The hooded man retreats back into the darkness, praising the protagonist's quick reaction. The opponent decides to increase the intensity of the combat by summoning several magical daggers into the air. Floating weapons surround Ray on all sides, ready to fire simultaneously. With agile and precise movements, the hero dodges and deflects all projectiles without any difficulty. The enemy becomes desperate when they see their strongest attack repelled so easily. He realizes that Ray is using the whip at high speed just to mock his attacks. The villain grits his teeth, realizing that simple tricks won't work against this opponent. He analyzes the young man, concluding that he is very accustomed to completely subduing his enemies. The villain grins sinisterly, realizing he'll need to use his true trump card to win. He lets out a macabre laugh, admitting that it had been a long time since he had fought at full strength. The opponent summons a gleaming sword surrounded by a dense cloud of dark energy. Ray watches intently, finally understanding his opponent's true style. The opponent advances with firm, quick steps, preparing the decisive blow with his new blade. The villain attacks fiercely, shouting that the hero will never leave that dark alley alive. The protagonist's eyes gleam intensely as he focuses all his attention on the attack. Ray manages to dodge by millimeters the devastating slash that tears through the air around him. The hero realizes that the reach and force of the enemy's blow are much greater than they appear. The two begin exchanging swift attacks, generating numerous bright sparks across the scene. The villain screams insanely with excitement, saying that the real battle is only beginning. Ray notices that the enemy wields heavy swords, demonstrating extraordinary physical strength. He considers tiring his opponent out, but decides he needs to end the fight as quickly as possible. Ray invokes his mystical ability of iron stakes to create extremely sharp wires in the air. The villain suddenly finds himself trapped by the mana lines and angrily curses the protagonist. Ray pulls the strings knowing that his opponent must understand the deadly danger of those lines. Ray realizes that the villain's next move will be to dive into the shadows to close the distance. As the enemy attempts to emerge from the shadows, he is suddenly intercepted by Ray's sharp lines. The villain panics when he realizes the hero anticipated his movements and placed wires behind him as well. Ray gives a mocking smile, saying that he fell into the trap by being overconfident in his abilities. The hooded man struggles angrily, asserting that the fight is not over and that he has one last card to play. He pulls out a mystical golden bell and madly announces that he will transform the hero into his obedient puppet. Ray's gaze becomes completely vacant and paralyzed as he listens to the sound emitted by the strange bell. The hero immediately recognizes that mystical vibration of the bell from his memories of the past. He remembers that this object is the mind manipulation tool used to betray him earlier. The villain becomes confused and annoyed upon hearing the protagonist begin to laugh at the spell. Ray smiles, saying that he has finally found what he was looking for after investigating so many rumors in the kingdom. The hero's gaze fills with fury as he realizes he has finally found a trace of the client. He celebrates having followed the trail of the stolen magical relics to reach that crucial point. With blood in his eyes, the protagonist celebrates being so close to catching the mastermind behind his death. The opponent tries to maintain his composure and questions whether the young man truly believes he has already won that fight. He rings the golden bell again, mockingly warning that the hero's arrogance will be his downfall. A powerful wave of magical energy spreads through the air, attempting to dominate the protagonist's mind. The villain, with an insane grin, orders the hero to reveal his true intentions. The hero simply gives a mocking smile and calmly reveals that the spell had no effect. The opponent is completely shocked and horrified, unable to comprehend how this is possible. Ray reveals with absolute pride that the spell failed because he himself was the creator of that mystical bell. A flashback shows the hero in his friend Rit's lab planning his next moves. The bespectacled alchemist provides the hero with extremely rare materials to create new tools. The protagonist accepts with a smile and begins designing a special device to counteract mana interference. The brilliant new artifact was custom-made to completely nullify the power of mind control. The innovative tool emits a counter-magical frequency capable of neutralizing wave manipulation. The villain is incredulous to see that a mythic-level item was completely useless against the hero. The opponent takes a step back, admitting with fear that the young man's strength has surpassed all expectations. Suddenly, the villain plunges back into the shadows of the ground, leaving the protagonist on alert. Ray realizes that the enemy can disappear into the shadows with just a physical touch in the darkness. The voice echoes through the alley, saying that the hero has truly managed to pique the opponent's interest. The villain reappears with a sinister grin in the darkness, suggesting they be more creative. He delivers a devastating sword blow that destroys the wall of a nearby residential house. An innocent resident falls from her bed in terror amidst the rubble of the collapsing wall. Ray is shocked to see a defenseless civilian at the scene and realizes the enemy's terrible intentions. The villain grins sadistically, golden bell in hand, ready to begin his puppet show. Several innocent civilians emerge from the shadows with glowing red eyes, under mind control. The opponent cruelly orders his new soldiers to attack and immobilize the protagonist. The protagonist tries to retreat and dodge the attacks without harming any of the innocent people. He skillfully dodges, mentally complaining about how villains love to involve innocents in fights. The hooded man taunts the hero, asking if he feels bad about the situation. He maliciously questions whether the hero hates seeing other people get hurt because of his actions. The villain takes advantage of the young man's hesitation and advances quickly while he focuses on the civilians. He delivers a powerful slash from behind, warning that the hero's compassion will lead to his downfall. Ray realizes that dodging the sword attack will cause the defenseless villager behind him to strike. Unable to dodge, the hero decides to use his own body to block the brutal sword strike. The blade strikes the protagonist's arm, generating a loud metallic impact amidst the scenery. The violent collision releases an immense wave of magical energy that sends all the dust flying into the air. The villain is puzzled to realize that his blade didn't cut any flesh despite the precise impact. The hero wipes himself with mockery and silently thinks that his artificial body is far more resistant than a normal one. The villain finds the hero's resilience fascinating and wants to see how much longer he can endure. Then the controlled civilians run forward again towards the protagonist. Ray says he loves using human shields, but warns he will no longer tolerate this cowardice. The hero invokes the scent of silence, releasing a magical smoke that makes everyone fall asleep. The civilians fall asleep on the ground, leaving the villain in complete despair at losing control. Ray suddenly appears before him, delivering a swift attack that causes him to spit blood. With extreme agility, the hero uses his mana threads to snatch the golden bell from his hand. The opponent is completely immobilized by the protagonist's sharp ropes and lets out a groan of pain. The hero holds the mystical relic in his hands, coldly declaring that the show is over. The villain trembles with fear as the hero warns that it's time for him to ask the questions. The protagonist demands with a menacing look that he reveal everything about his true master. Ray wants to know the reason for the theft of the relics, while the villain roars with fury and despair. Completely cornered and injured, the opponent lowers his head, surrendering in the fight. He reveals with a macabre smile that his group's main objective is to bring anarchy and chaos. The villain confesses that they intend to use the mythical weapons to start a war across the continent. Ray is surprised to learn about the war because he thought the plan was simply to resurrect the dragon. The villain reveals that they used the money to manipulate the Fire Dragon clan as a perfect front. The hero questions whether they themselves stole the artifact from the royal army's custody. The opponent smiles with a psychotic look, bluntly confirming the protagonist's suspicions. He reveals that the legendary mystical gourd that absorbs mana has already been duly stolen by them. The mystical blue artifact has already been positioned directly at the location where the dragon was sealed. He warns that the resurrection will begin at any moment, leaving the protagonist surprised. Ray recalls using 2 mystical gourds to neutralize the monster's physical and magical power. He believes that if they break just one of the seals, the dragon will awaken in an incomplete and insane state. The villain maliciously confirms that the incomplete dragon will unleash a rampage of destruction in a fit of blind fury. Ray is furious at the wickedness, but the villain laughs, saying he does everything for the glory of his master. The hooded man fanatically states that he doesn't care if the capital is completely destroyed. The villain laughs hysterically, while the protagonist stares at him with utter disdain for his madness. Suddenly, the darkness of the night begins to be cut by a colossal roar coming from afar. While fleeing through Dunkel Alley, he stops in fright upon realizing that something terrible is happening. Hyona suddenly appears in front of him, blocking his path with a rather serious expression. The redhead points her blade and orders the traitor to surrender and come with her without causing trouble. Dunkel lets out a disdainful laugh, calling the warrior a naive rookie who doesn't understand anything. The old man says mockingly that their greedy actions only serve the glory of the entire group. He grins sadistically and orders her in a threatening tone not to dare disturb him. The old man clenches his armored fist, channeling an immense amount of energy into the combat. Suddenly, a colossal explosion of flames destroys the ground in the background, leaving the young woman terrified. The redhead realizes that this destructive magical energy is not a simple detonation spell. An immense dragon's paw emerges, crushing the ground and spreading smoke and destruction across the area. The terrifying fire dragon roars in fury amidst the flames, poised to turn the capital to ashes. The colossal monster opens its maw of sharp teeth, preparing a devastating breath of flames. Hyona is thrown into complete despair upon seeing the gigantic beast, while the old man laughs loudly. Suddenly, a spell of immense magical power collides forcefully directly with the dragon. Both the old man and the warrior are paralyzed in shock upon seeing that unexpected interference. Ray emerges imposingly, wielding the mystical meteor buster cannon with its brilliant energy. The hero tells the hooded villain that his interrogation about the plan's secrets can wait a little while. The protagonist prepares himself with a determined look, stating that first they will hunt a dragon. The colossal monster roars with all its destructive fury, spreading fire throughout the city's houses. From atop a rooftop, the hero faces the colossal fire beast, ready to begin the final confrontation. With unwavering determination and courage, the young warrior prepares to save the capital from destruction. A large mass of flaming energy surges violently as it attempts to merge into the air. The incomplete monster can barely maintain its form and unleashes an absurd amount of magical power around it. Hyona runs desperately to Ray, who immediately asks what happened to the traitor Dunkel. She recounts that she gave the old man a good beating and tied him up tightly, ensuring he wouldn't wake up anytime soon. The redhead is impressed by the earlier attack and asks if he was the one who used that overwhelming power. Ray explains that he used a bullet of condensed mana in an attempt to rip the monster's head off in one go. But the attack ultimately failed because something strange protected the gigantic dragon at the last moment. The hero realizes that all that leaking magical energy is acting as a perfect protective barrier. Hyona is shocked to have never heard of this before, while Ray warns that the beast will attack again. The colossal monster begins to accumulate an overwhelming amount of flames directly in its maw. A gigantic and destructive bolt of fire shoots from the sky towards the city ground. The terrible explosion hits the streets of the capital, causing unbelievable destruction everywhere. Ray manages to protect Hyona from the devastating shockwave by using his own body as a shield against the wind. The redhead stares in horror at the destruction caused by the beast and can hardly believe her eyes. A single breath from the monster opened a colossal crater in the ground and split the entire city in two. Ray holds his companion firmly and warns her that she can't just stand there paralyzed in the middle of danger. The two leap quickly away as the surrounding terrain begins to crumble completely. The young man lands swiftly in a safe spot and orders her to maintain her full focus on the battle. He warns that any slip-up in that confrontation will be fatal, and Hyona just grumbles as she recovers. While people run in despair, the dragon roars menacingly, spreading panic everywhere. The dragon's terrifying breath directly struck the civilians who were frantically trying to flee that nightmare. From atop a balcony, a mysterious gray-haired man silently observes all the destruction. He maintains a completely cold and expressionless demeanor in the face of the chaos consuming the city. Debris continues to fly through the air, while the desperate cries of residents echo throughout the region. Hyona watches the city in flames, and deeply regrets seeing her home consumed by the arson fire. She asks where the knights of the kingdom are, and Ray calmly replies that an army takes time to act. The young man concludes seriously that they will have to resolve that terrible threat on their own. The redhead's eyes widened, unable to believe that they would have to face a giant monster, just the two of them. He explains that the traitors were merely pawns, and that they cannot trust anyone in the kingdom to ask for reinforcements. With a slight smile, the boy says that the only person he can fully trust at that moment is her. The declaration of confidence leaves the warrior completely speechless and with her heart racing. Very close by, several people are running desperately through the narrow streets trying to find safe shelter. A mother holds her young child in her lap as the immense fire monster emerges from behind them, ready to attack. She cries in terror, desperately begging for someone to come and save them from certain death. In the last millisecond, Hyona leaps out with her sword in hand to place herself in front of the family. The warrior delivers a powerful blow to the ground, channeling her combat energy to create a protective barrier. She screams, unleashing her power with full intensity to release her secret defense technique. An imposing golden shield materializes in the air, completely blocking the advance of the dragon's flames. The redhead orders the mother and the boy to flee immediately while she can still hold off the danger. Ray walks silently through the smoke, closely observing the courage of his new combat ally. She admits there is no other choice and prepares herself psychologically to face that impossible battle. With a wild grin, she brandishes her blade and declares that the time has come to hunt that damned dragon. She asks what the plan is since conventional attacks won't work, and Ray replies with great confidence. The boy reminds her that she is the true expert in slaying dragons, and she awkwardly agrees. The warrior explains that the correct thing to do would be to cut off the wings and tail first to remove all mobility from the beast. The problem is that with that magical barrier covering the dragon's body, none of those common tactics will work. Ray gives a mysterious half-smile and states that they will use the monster's own protective barrier against it. He uses his creation of magical tools to design a ring capable of expanding his total mana capacity. Ray places the ring on her, explaining that the item acts as an enhancer to raise her power to its absolute limit. The boy then asks her to act as bait, distracting the giant dragon until his final plan is ready. Hyona bravely advances against the fire dragon in order to fulfill her role as bait in the battle. She activates her special sword skill by channeling all the energy from the new magic ring she received. The warrior unleashes a dance of flames, creating a brilliant whirlwind of fire and energy around the monster. Hyona is astonished to notice that her power is on another level and that she is hardly using any mana. She praises the magical tool, but knows she can't fight forever without the city being destroyed altogether. Suddenly, the dragon opens its gleaming maw and prepares to unleash a point-blank breath attack on the warrior. With no time to dodge the terrible attack, the redhead panics, fearing the worst that is yet to come. At that very moment, a mysterious steel cable rapidly wraps around a stone beam in the scene. The monster's burst of flames is deflected into the sky, causing a massive explosion in the clouds above them. The fire dragon itself widens its eyes in surprise as it senses it is losing control of its body. From above, the hero uses his incredible physical strength to pull the chains and destabilize the beast's balance. Hyona watches in surprise as the imposing warrior manipulates the situation and moves the giant dragon with his bare hands. She remembers Ray saying he would use the barrier against the dragon and wonders what he really plans. The redhead is still trying to understand how he intends to move a colossal creature of that size by brute force. Ray had silently revealed that he intended to blow up the entire monster along with its powerful protective barrier. He notes that physical blows cause no damage, but claims to have discovered a crucial secret about the barrier. The boy realized that the dragon's mana shield could not completely absorb the kinetic impact of the attacks. The warrior admits that it all makes sense, but she's still very worried about the creature's colossal size. She remains intrigued, trying to decipher how he intends to accomplish that impossible feat. Back in the present, the furious dragon roars again, gathering spheres of brilliant flames in its mouth. Rei leaps nimbly through the gunfire, traversing the battlefield with extreme precision and speed. With complete composure and tranquility, the hero states that his plan is actually extremely simple to execute. He compares the beast to a bird in a cage and says that if the bird doesn't want to leave on its own, it will. The young man descends from the sky, delivering a devastating kick that pushes the entire cage, with the monster trapped inside to its knees. The immense fire dragon is hurled backward, violently colliding with several city buildings. Rei runs over quickly, saying triumphantly that all he needed to do was simply move the cage. With a furious cry, the hero channels all his magical power, concentrating it in his arm for the final attack. He unleashes a colossal energy punch directly against the protective shield, generating an immense roar of power. The brutal impact launches the gigantic creature into the air, completely eliminating the threat from the ground. The colossal dragon is thrown so high that it ends up disappearing completely into the dark clouds of the night. On the ground, Hyona watches everything in complete silence, unable to believe that he actually isolated the monster. As the protagonist falls back down, he prepares to use his alchemy and magic-making skills. He activates his special ability to create magical tools in order to prepare his most powerful trump card. In the middle of the night sky, a colossal flying fortress begins to materialize before your shining eyes. The mythical floating fortress reflects the image of the fearsome fire dragon that is ultimately named Zarixale. From atop the structure, Rei faces the gigantic beast and warns that this will be the scene of their final confrontation. The hero uses the mythical item, Riot Berger, to charge his magical puppet body to its full power. He focuses on his current body, which possesses 10 times more mana than he had at his peak in the kingdom's past. The hero begins to concentrate all his energy on a single point, saying that not even an evil dragon will be able to withstand it. Suddenly, electric sparks of mana begin to tear the boy's clothes apart due to the immense amount of energy. He stares indifferently at his completely charred arm and notices that the mana circuits have burned out. The magical circuits function like blood vessels in the body, distributing energy throughout the structure. The sudden and massive surge of mana caused by the circular ring was greater than its channels could handle. A human brain has natural limitations, but that magical doll's body has no restraints to contain so much mana. Rei mentally concludes that there are definitely still many points to be improved in his body design. The imposing floating fortress gleams high in the night sky as the decisive battle is about to begin. Back on the ground, Hyona stares in amazement at the gigantic structure and wonders who the young man really is. The hero suddenly appears, walking up behind her, and Hyona rejoices in relief upon seeing that he is still alive. The warrior points worriedly to his burned arm, and the young man simply replies that he suffered a slight setback. Rei warns that he'll need her up there, summoning her strategic mind and sharp blade for combat. Hyona looks at the immense floating fortress, and Rei confirms seriously that their destination is exactly up there. The young man states with complete determination that they will defeat the terrible dragon Zarixale in that place once and for all. The colossal monster roars furiously as it finds itself cornered in the floating arena created by the hero. Rei charges forward at high speed towards the dragon, initiating yet another deadly assault amidst the scenery. The redhead playfully asks if he's excited, and Rei replies that she's just scared of the altitude. The fire dragon unleashes a relentless rain of flaming spheres toward the two warriors. Hyona complains that his attacks have gotten even worse, and Rei calmly says that they just need to dodge everything. She despairs, wondering how they will manage to defeat such an appealing and monstrous creature. Rei asks for calm and explains that the beast's body structure is identical to that of the common dragons she usually hunts. She understands the situation and deduces that in this case the vulnerable point must be the moment when the beast roars. Dragons possess a fire sac in their throat where they accumulate mana before unleashing a destructive roar. She explains that when all that mana concentrates in the monster's throat, a temporary weak point opens up. At that precise moment, the mana barrier becomes extremely thin and vulnerable in the creature's neck area. Rei warns that mana is fluid, but assures that he possesses the perfect device to track this opening in the barrier. The redhead accepts the idea, but questions how he intends to strike her weak point when his arm is so badly injured. The young man gives a slight smile and reveals, to her surprise, that he will not be the one to deliver the final, devastating blow. The dragon unleashes a devastating breath that explodes the surrounding rock debris with a deafening impact. While fleeing, Hyona complains, saying that she doesn't have the same destructive power as him to pierce the dragon's barrier. Rei walks in with complete confidence and assures her with absolute certainty that she is perfectly capable of doing this. The young man turns around with a confident look, revealing that she is the only person there with the necessary trump card. He is referring to her ultimate move, which was too dangerous to be used on the busy streets of the capital. The memory of her immense stone golem crushing everything emerges to illustrate the true destructive force of the young woman. She realizes he really investigated her, but says her strength doesn't even come close to his mystical abilities. Rei says that doesn't matter and warns that the mystical ring will awaken the true power of his legendary magic sword. She smiles, intrigued, upon seeing that he also knows the secrets of her sword and asks who he really is. The protagonist humbly replies that he is merely a novice adventurer who understands tools quite well. Rei declares that the conversation is over and that the time has come to begin the coordinated attack against the terrible dragon. The immense dragon roars furiously, unleashing several simultaneous bursts of flames across the battlefield. Several colossal explosions devastate the floating arena, hurling giant chunks of rock in all directions. The hero leaps nimbly, summoning a beautiful bluish magic shield to defend himself from the creature's overwhelming fire. He cracks the shield in the process and shouts Hyona's name, summoning his ally to act immediately in combat. The redhead replies that she already knows what to do and steps forward, firmly wading through the water while focusing all her energy. She runs quickly, playfully telling him he loves pushing her to her limits, but focuses on fulfilling her role as bait. The colossal fire dragon opens its massive jaws, focused on destroying the intruder rushing towards it. The warrior channels an immense amount of magical flames directly into her combat boots in the scene. She executes her special technique of flaming steps, projecting a wave of fire slashes towards the dragon. With absurdly fast movements, the warrior launches herself through the air like a true comet, gleaming with flames. His magical slashes strike the dragon's body with precision, completely diverting the monster's attention from its true target. She walks away shouting Rei's name, signaling that she has perfectly executed the plan to distract the beast. From high above, the protagonist wields a beautiful bright blue energy sphere in his hand to locate the weakness. Rei activates his magic detection sonar, sending out a powerful wave capable of tracking the opponent's entire mana flow. Rei remembers his fallen comrades and feels that deep sense of confidence in combat once more. The young man reflects with absolute determination that when someone places their faith in you, the only option is to respond. The immense golden gaze of the fire dragon shines intensely as it focuses on the opponent in front of it in the arena. The monstrous creature opens its sharp-toothed mouth, accumulating more spheres of flames to hit you. Hyona watches from afar, her heart pounding in despair as she sees the young man become completely vulnerable in the beast's sights. A series of colossal detonations shakes the floating structure, covering the entire scene in smoke and debris. However, the magical detection device continues to float, shining brightly in the sky above the head of the fire dragon. The hero emerges imposingly from the fire and coldly demands that the beast demonstrate its full strength in battle. With a sharp gaze, Rei points his magic ring and declares that he has finally located the dragon's true weak point. The hero's device begins scanning the dragon's entire body, mapping the flow of magical energy in real time. The monster rages, opening its sharp-toothed mouth to unleash one of its most devastating attacks in combat. The sensor shows a bright blue point of light on the dragon's neck, finally revealing where the vulnerable spot opened. Hyona rushes forward with her magic sword, activating her legendary flame dance to begin the final attack of the fight. A brilliant and colossal explosion consumes the scene, engulfing the dragon in an immense and destructive wave of heat. Rei observes with admiration and explains that this is actually the warrior Hyona Carmine's strongest secret technique. She is the legendary all-time record holder for dragon hunting in the kingdom and focuses all her strength on her swordsmanship. The redhead unleashes her firebird technique directly at the throat of the fire dragon, which roars in terror. The energy blast hits the weak point squarely, causing a massive explosion of dust and debris across the scene. Hyona floats wearily in the air and celebrates with great relief, believing that they finally managed to defeat the beast. However, the fire dragon resurfaces in pure fury, firing a deadly red beam towards the two heroes. The warrior is in a complete state of shock when she realizes that the giant monster withstood her most powerful blow. Suddenly, an energy blockage prevents the destructive lightning bolt from striking the redhead at the last millisecond. Rei appears protectively beside her and announces with a slight smile that the annoying dragon barrier has finally disappeared. A legendary sword emerges, enveloped in a swirl of brilliant light, ready to be used as the ultimate weapon in combat. The young warrior joins her and declares with absolute determination that now is their turn to attack together.